show, so we must talk about the Batman cartoon. That's a good way to start, right? So,
Yeah. Well,
so,
and
so,
I can really get into topics and go on tangents, so
so
especially
that's
about
what.
these kinds of things.
So you're on the right show. You're on the
Oh,
right show.
100%. 100% the
Yes.
right show. But yeah, I was just talking to I just got my first tattoo the other day, and I was talking to the guy who did my tattoo. We were talking about the old Batman cartoon and how much I loved it. And my favorite episode is, and the one that sticks with me is the one where Poison Ivy. So Batman's investigating something plant based in nature, and he's like, of course it's Poison Ivy. So he goes and he finds her, and she's married, and she has two sons, and she's very happy, and he's very confused, like what's going on. And eventually, in the episode, you find out that her family are plants. Do you
Yes.
remember this episode?
Yeah, I do. I remember that show. Like
Yeah,
the Batman. So DC has like a fantastic animation like
yeah,
section. It's fantastic.
yeah.
The original Batman animated series is probably the best of that kind of show. Like, don't get me wrong, Superman was good. I actually, if my favorite of them is probably Batman Beyond. I really enjoyed that show. But the original Batman has a lot of the things that have happened in comics. Some of the best ideas come from that show, like legitimately come from that show. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, the in that episode, the thing I loved about it so much was um that it wasn't really a lie, because she was so in love with her husband and
yeah,
her kids, and she was devastated at the end. And I was saying, I was like, that's such a deep concept for a children's show, to that she had fabricated a life for herself, but that didn't mean that she didn't love it or them, or get emotionally invested.
what is real? Like
Yeah.
honestly, like that's the thing, right? Like go into that kind of tangent. Now there are some things, there's some other things we're leaving out. I not entirely. I think the really interesting thing about that for me is I'm not entirely sure if she was in control of the plants because they're just of her very nature, right? If created life is just such an interesting idea, and like what they did there, like a lot of what Poison Ivy has gone in comics and in the shows that and everything that's followed since is from that show, right? And it some of the really base ideas are fantastic. Like she was such an interesting character.
Yeah.
Originally, Poison Ivy was created to be a love interest for Batman. Interestingly enough,
Not
right?
surprising.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You
yeah.
go way back, but now,
Batman like those bad girls.
oh, oh yeah, absolutely. He needs to be pushed. I think so. The Harley Quinn show is hard. Like it's Harley Quinn. So it's twisted. It is it's an adult show. It's not for kids, right?
Which is
Um,
smart. Is smart.
yeah,
I mean, that's the consumers of this product now.
yeah, exactly. Well, like seriously, they turned Joker into and it works. The thing is, this absolutely works. So in the second season, the first season, he's the bad guy. He's the big bad guy because Harley's walking away from her ex, which is very Harley. When the second season, he actually reforms, kind of. He's still the Joker, but he's a stepson to two kids. He's actually fallen in love. He's gotten married. In the third season, he's actually running for mayor of Gotham City, and he's doing it not for any other reason but because he wants the best education for his kids. That is exactly that. Like it is. No, that's that. No, it is.
That's amazing.
No, it's incredible, right? And they actually did in the last episode a reverse. I don't know if you've ever seen the Killing Joke, like no, the novel, The Killing Joke, like the graphic
Mm-mm.
novel. So it's Alan Moore and Brian Boland's Joker tries to turn Commissioner Gordon evil. In the cartoon, they did an inverse of that. They did an inverse of that because the final scene in there is a tortured amusement park, right? So Two-Face is actually Commissioner Gordon's campaign advisor. He's running for mayor too. So this is a messed up show, but in like the best way. But he kidnaps Joker's stepson, right? So Joker's like, I didn't take you for a kid killer there, Gordon, and just like he did the things like, you know what? I'll walk away from Ray, so I'll press the button. He says, okay, I quit. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for him. So it was like, and then this is the Joker, right? And the Joker has become this domesticated, like suburban dad, and it works. It absolutely freaking works. And then
Yeah.
but my other favorite is Bane. Bane's is definitely more of a one-line joke. He has the Tom Hardy voice from the movie,
Yeah.
right? But everybody walks on him, and it's funny, right? It's actually very funny because he could still kick everybody's ass. That's the thing
Yeah.
about Bane; he can still do it, right? But I think my favorite thing is he decided to blow up an equivalent of a 7-Eleven because the guy that served him kept calling him Bang, not Bane, but the streets will run with Razzie Zazzy, and this is like in that Tom Hardy voice, and it's hilarious. Like,
This is a cartoon show.
this is oh yeah, you can find it. Oh yeah,
I'm gonna watch it. I have to.
no, it's really good. It is actually really really good. It's a great arc for Harley. Right, Poison Ivy's in it. Kite Man, you will like Kite Man. I never thought I'd say that, but you will like Kite Man, right?
Well, it sounds like the thing I like about it, and kind of tying in like the writing aspect of it, is creating complexity to those characters is important, and I think a lot of people can default, especially kind of a comic, and we kind of see this in certain franchises and mainstream where they don't get nearly enough depth and motivation, internal motivations. Like it's very rarely someone's just bad for the sake of being bad, or um what do they want? What does Joker want, and how can that change?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like in Harley, he becomes somebody else for reasons for a little while,
Right.
and it actually changes him, right? And the woman he's dating is a nurse, right? So they actually, and the hilarious thing about their relationship is they calm each other down, which is actually hilarious. Like you never, again, suburbia Joker is not something I'd ever thought I'd see, but it's
Yeah.
like it surprisingly works, and we are in a messed up time if that actually works. But that's just the way it goes, right?
Yeah.
But no, like what it is if I'm going to be honest with you, I actually think Batman bores me at this point. Not be right. That's right. As a concept, Batman bores me, and
Yeah.
they need to so because it's been the same thing since the 80s. So
Yeah.
it's been the same way since my whole entire like life, just about. And I'm getting old, and the clouds are starting to talk to me. And maybe while the clouds are still starting to talk to me, that maybe we should reimagine Batman for a more
Yeah.
modern. He's still. I don't think we're ever going to get back to Adam West Batman, which by the way still gets some people to actually pop at this point because it is hilarious. But Batman not taking himself quite so seriously would be a lot of fun right now. Would just be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I have to say though, I really did enjoy. Well, I really enjoy watching Robert Pattinson act. I think he's an
Yeah.
incredible actor, and I
Oh yeah.
really did like his very brooding gothic
Yeah.
Batman. Like because it makes sense and how Batman would be, which he's just kind of like a sad guy.
Well, no, yeah, of
And
course he is. He's a sad guy with just a touch of a romance. He wants to prevent the world from what happened to him happen to everybody. That's a beautiful idea,
yeah,
but but the way he chooses to do it is so dark, right? And you know, at some point you'd hope. Again, this is why I'm a big fan of I think Batman Beyond, because I Terry's got some of that dark, brooding stuff too, but he's a little bit more balanced, right? He's a little bit more balanced. He's a little bit more of a smartass than Bruce is, right?
yeah.
And also like from superhero movie standpoint, the Batman animated series and the Batman Beyond movies are damn near perfect. Like they're just really, really, really good. Mask of the Phantasm is probably the best Batman movie, like period. Batman did you ever see it?
No, I don't think I have.
It's from the original. It's the animated series movie. It is literally Batman. It's a love story of Batman, the love of his life. She's perfect for him in so many ways. Too perfect in some ways. That's the tragedy of the story. And it's a great, it's a perfect Batman story. It's perfect start to finish, and it's animated. And then Batman Beyond, they do Return of the Joker. They actually bring Mark Hamill's Joker into Batman Beyond universe. And
The best.
oh, it's Such a fan, and the twist is awesome. The twist is amazing, and but it's also when obviously Terry McGinnis fights the Joker, he doesn't approach the Joker the same way Bruce Wayne does, right? In many ways, he's better suited to fighting the Joker than Bruce ever was, and that is an interesting, right?
Because is he better because he has kind of more of the touch of the Joker in him, or like why is he better?
Because he understands the Joker. He has a sense of humor.
But,
And because
okay.
so he has and he understands he does have something in common with the Joker is they like to talk like Batman. He likes to talk to the people he fights. So
Right.
this is Joker, and from there he was able to figure out a strategy to beat the Joker, and it was really really good because that's not something Bruce Wayne ever would have thought to do.
Yeah.
That's what's so neat about that. Also, the Harley Quinn cameo in there, you'll pop. You will pop so hard for that. Like it's just like that's perfect. That is absolutely fucking perfect, right? And but yeah, like I love the old concepts. I just like I think what's happened to me and this is what's happened to me is I read other shit and I've grown and evolved, and as such I still like my superheroes. I still do. I'm still a comic book nerd. I still read Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm totally
amazing. Yeah.
Yes. Kevin Eastman went back to do Ninja Turtles like 8 years ago. It's like I don't care. I'm in. I'm in. I don't care.
Yeah, right? you're way into comics. Lately I've been talking about getting more into comics because I'm kind of in terms of reading comics. Kind of didn't really get. I read the Sandman comics, so I was very excited.
That's a very strong start. That's a very good one.
Well, that's the thing. And then I just fell in love with Neil Gaiman from there. Those were the first things I read of Neil Gaiman. And
okay, yeah.
So, but I do love those kind of the concepts behind. I love the skeleton that a lot of comic book stories are built upon and the complexities that you get. Like, so you usually get a wide range of characters because it's easier for people to keep track of who is who in a comic book scenario. And then you can also get a lot of different kinds of extreme personality types that usually correlate to some kind of ability, some kind of magical ability. And all this time, you're really talking about a much deeper concept, which is what I'm all about in terms of my own writing and the entertainment I consume. So
for me, this is where my reading hole. I started in comics, but I was a superhero. I was a superhero guy when I started it. So now it's for you, the comics I would recommend for you. These are the ones I think you'd like. Brian K. Vaughan's Saga.
Okay.
Right? I think you would dig that. If you want something that's outright, because you can get those in trade. It's a story you've seen told before, but not in the way you've ever seen it told. It's fantastic. I think I think you'll dig it. It finally started coming back out this year, and I was so happy. It's like I'm still a single issue guy, but this one you can get in a trade, so that's a good so you start there. I would recommend that one. I would recommend if you're looking for something superhero-y, like I would recommend the one I would recommend for you if you want something a little bit more familiar would be something like Marauders. It's the X-Men as pirates. It's actually surprisingly fun. It is.
I'm not surprisingly. That sounds like just that pitch alone. Like that is the elevator pitch. The X-Men as pirates. Sold.
Kitty Pryde's the captain, by the way. It's really good. It's fantastic.
That's amazing. So I didn't read the comics, but my sister and I did collect the X-Men cards.
Oh, nice.
So I know the characters well because we had our books where we'd keep them all, and I would just look at the art.
So it's political machinations and pirate ships. You'd enjoy that. That is a fantastic, and that's like a familiar property that also I'm not cursing you with the entire X-Men catalog of you must read zillions of X books to get it. No, it is
Yeah, I'd
simply
probably be out. I'd be like,
no,
yeah,
no, no,
I
no,
can't.
no. That hey, I totally like for me personally, I it's a personal hard and fast rule. If I have to read, I will read one extra book every so often if it's really good.
Yeah.
I will, but if it's not, that's my big worry because I collect Harley Quinn and I'm collecting the Tim Drake Robin runs. I'm friends with Riley Rossmo, who's drawing Tim Drake's Robin, and I'm friends with Stephanie Phillips, who's been on the show.
Nice.
And so those are their books. So I'm reading their books. That's why.
You have to. You have to.
Yeah. So, but if they get into like lost into the Batman like envelope, I'm out. It's just like I'm out. Like that's just the way it is, right? But if they're allowed to tell their own stories, I will let them. Like that's like the Tim Drake Robin is one of my favorite characters of DC all time. And like I said, I enjoy Stephanie Phillips. She's secretly Canadian that lives in Florida. It's a phenomenal. Like we had it was a phenomenal little interview. She's like a secretly Canadian buddy there. So, but
she's undercover.
she plays hockey and likes Tim Hortons. She's secretly Canadian. That's my little joke of that. That's my little joke with her. No, like so that's like the mainstream. I think that would be a very fun book for you. For DC, see, when it's good, I'd say Wonder Woman. When it's good, when it's bad, it's literally the worst book on the market. It's like there is no because the problem with a character like Wonder Woman is you can only tell a certain kind of story with her that really works. Because unlike say the X-Men or Batman or Spider-Man, they're more like you look at Wonder Woman, Superman, Shazam, those characters. They're more ideas, like kid ideas, than fleshed out adult characters. As such, you can only now the stories you can tell with her, if you do them well, are amazing. She is an incredible character when she's in really good hands.
What do you think as a character? Because I could see how it could be problematic where she's kind of like a Mary Sue type character. So when you've seen it done well, what do they do with her that makes it?
Well, because she's okay. Who she is? She's essentially a warrior, right? She's essentially a warrior, but she's also a diplomat. She's a warrior / diplomat. She believes in peace, but she's mastered war. Right. So her solutions, like her problems / her solutions, should deal with that paradox at all times. Her natural, like a good example of it, they actually did an arc where she was blind. But the reason she was going to be blind is she was fighting Medusa, and she could not resist Medusa's gaze. There was just she can't do it. Shield was failing. Everything was out. She was looking for a solution. She blinded herself to win. That feels like something she would do to deal with the situation. She's not Superman. She's not Batman. She's not as nice as they are. She knows how to get her hands dirty. But the thing with her is she's so strong. And I'm not talking like physically, but internally, right? She can handle burdens that they can't. And I think that's what makes her really interesting. Now, when she's not interesting is when they decide that she's not, that conflict is not the focus of her story. That's when she's not interesting. But
yeah,
all right. But the thing is, because she doesn't have the full human flaws, she doesn't have the full details. Let's say again, a Peter Parker or Wolverine or any of the like the Marvel characters, you can only go so far with the line, and she bends. Superman has the same problem. There are certain kinds of stories. I don't think a vampire Superman story works. I don't think it does. Right? You can't, right? Unless you make him glitter. And I don't know if we want to do that, right? Right? I don't know if we want to do that, right? But
it's a bird, it's a plane, it's a disco ball. What's happening?
That's right. Why is he glowing? Oh, he's that kind of vampire. Damn it. He can't even be cool this way.
And so, coming from somebody who I have been absolutely in love with vampires and vampire movies since I was a kid. I'm not interested in that either.
Yeah, I see what I mean? Like, it doesn't work. Yeah. Superman's the character, if you do write him, just have fun with him. Like, he's literally about having fun. He has a bottled city of his surviving distant covers that are like micro small. Jimmy Olsen can become a monster every other week. He's got a fortress of solitude where he invents weird shit, right? I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, this is not a character you need to take seriously. He's like the
Yeah.
ultimate dad. Write him like the ultimate dad. That's what you should.
I've never conceptualized Superman as being the ultimate dad.
That's what he is. Think about
he's
it.
like in his shop. He's just like in his,
No, yeah, no,
where's Dad? He's in the workshop again.
Yeah,
in the
no,
fortress.
that's right. But no, think of it like this, okay? My dad can bounce, but like very kid, like my dad's better than your dad arguments, right? Well, my dad can bounce, bro. Yeah, you're right. That's right. But that's who he is. Write him like that. It works. It legitimately works. And heck, right? He's the one character you could legitimately write as a dad, real life, as a legitimate dad, and it would work. Of all the superheroes, right? That's that works. Or just be silly. It worked for like 70 years. So just find the silliest fucking things you can do with him and just do it. And people would, I think, just go along with the ride.
I can't help but think about the monologue in Kill Bill about Superman and how like that is his idea of humans. Like
exactly.
His Clark Kent is and like that really sums it up so well. I love that scene in Kill Bill.
Yeah. Okay. All-Star Superman. If you are gonna read a Superman story, that's the one to read. That is a Superman and a Clark Kent you'll like.
Wasn't there? What was it? There's one called Red Sun, right? And it's where
Red Sun's interesting.
Yeah, Red Sun like that story sounds fascinating. Like
Red Sun's interesting. All-Star's better. The story, the pitch of All-Star is simple. Superman has to save. Like the start of the story is Superman is set up. He has to save this crew from space, and he goes deep into the sun. So deep, he absorbs too much sun. He's actually dying from it. So while he's that's the start. So while he's doing that, he's doing each issue. He's only got a limited amount of time left. So now he's trying to do all these labors of these things he wants to do, and with the time he has left, it's actually fantastic. The whole ride is amazing.
What a brilliant pressure to put this character who is so classically untouchable to face something so human, which is limited time.
Yes.
And running out of time. And what do you do? Because that's when you find out who you really are, right? Like what matters to you when you only that's brilliant.
That's why it's the best one. It's actually the best one because
it's incredible.
It does something, again, one of the hardest things to do with a character. And that's the other reason that why Superman and Wonder Woman are so hard to write is this. How do you build sympathy for them? Yeah. It's hard to do, right? Yeah. It's really hard to do. Superman can do literally anything, so no one's going to be sympathetic to any plights like that. But something like that, now he's vulnerable in a way he never considered.
Yeah, that's genius. I love that.
Yeah.
And like, so I've never gotten into Wonder Woman. I never watched any shows, but I did watch the one movie. So that I don't really know much about that character. And so I love hearing that she is the type of character and the type of person who, and we kind of come across these people kind of rarely where it's like, I'm going to do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely a missed opportunity, I think, in the mainstream consumption of that character.
Yeah. Now keep in mind, it's the last resort with her. Always. Mm-hmm. Like that's the thing that makes her really, like, she does have a moral code. Otherwise she would just be Harley Quinn or something else, right? She actually has a moral code. That's interesting. So you can push her in some really interesting spots.
Yeah.
Right? Just there. But like those are, again, we were talking about comic recommendations. So like there's someone else you might enjoy, and this is not a mainstream book. Pick something from Terry Moore. Either Strangers in Paradise. If you like horror, something tells me you like horror. Rachel Rising. That would be the book I'd recommend to you. Rachel Rising. Yeah. It's fully done, right? The ending's a touch rush, but I love his style, and I think you would enjoy that. like I said, I'm a comic nerd. I know all the good
Yeah.
books.
Well, I mean, like I said, the beauty of comics and the beauty of and we can like kind of pull this out in scope in terms of the discussion into comic books, fantasy, and science fiction, and why I default to writing in fantasy is because historically and currently it's such a great way to talk about the more philosophical or deep issues and be like, well, I'm really just talking about, or you could use like Ursula Le Guin and be like, I'm talking about another planet that has no gender. It's science fiction, but you're talking about these like great deep concepts that is candy coated and
Le Guin was a genius.
indirect.
Le Guin was a genius. I like
Yes, without question.
she was totally a genius. I love her. I love my favorite of her stuff a lot. You're talking about the Left Hand of Darkness there. I
Yeah.
actually enjoyed the Depossessed a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right. But no, she was really, really brilliant. As I've gotten older, my tastes have tended to veer to sillier. I love Michael Moorcock a lot more now than when I did when I was younger.
That's interesting. When did you start to notice that shift?
Right before the pandemic, but I think the pandemic actually shifted. I've always liked the more imaginative. My starting for reading material when I got into science fiction was Edgar Rice Burroughs, Ray Bradbury, and Isaac Asimov. Those were the three I started with. Now, I like Neil Gaiman, but I don't love Neil Gaiman. And the reason why is because I read somebody named Charles DeLint. So when you read Ray Bradbury and then you read Charles DeLint, and then Neil Gaiman's the third one you're introduced to. Now, if I had met Gaiman before DeLint, I think Gaiman would be a bigger Gaiman fan than I am. That's not to say he's not good. That's not what I'm saying. It's just he taps into the same trees Bradbury and DeLint do. So if I had read him like first, right, I think I would have liked him more. It's just he's really good, but he's not my favorite, but he's really good. Then when I went to fantasy, it was Robert Jordan, then David Eddings, and then so the classic stuff. Now, and then I read Michael Moorcock younger. For me, it's not Elric, it's Hawkmoon. I think Hawkmoon's so freaking over the top cool. It's like, right? It's like I like that kind of like what I found. I think this is what I find. It's I'm not interested in being necessarily great anymore. I'm interested in having fun.
Yes.
That's I think the shift with me. So like my favorite manga right now is Spy X Family. I don't know if you've seen it or heard it.
I've not gotten into manga at all.
Wow. Okay, so that one is the absolute silliest one it's so silly. It's about a secret agent that has to make a family undercover. But here's the whole thing. His wife is secretly an assassin and using the marriage to hide what she's doing. And their daughter is 5 years old and is a telepath and knows exactly what's going on with the two of them. It's hilarious.
That's amazing. What a great twist on like a really kind of overdone plot, story.
Oh yeah, it's hilarious because it's like it's the Japanese manga silly. It's as silly as you get because it's like it's very obvious from the outside looking in that all of them are not what they seem to be, right? They also get a dog that can eventually see the future, which is just like it's just like
what does it do with that information?
Well, it's simple because the girl can read the mind. Reads mouth.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
so clever.
And it's silly. Like again, like here's the thing, right? It's fun. It's not necessarily. Again, is it Shakespeare? I have nothing but respect, right? Like I have nothing but respect for people that try to do these great epic stories.
Yeah.
But as I've gotten older, I've realized, I'm having way more fun. Terry Pratchett's much more interesting to me than Brandon Sanderson is. And I'm not knocking Brandon Sanderson. Brandon Sanderson is amazing.
Yeah.
But I think Pratchett's a genius. And that's kind of where I'm at in my life. Now, maybe someday I get I'm probably not going to get that. I can be serious, but I don't like being if you make me the adult in the room, I tend to be a little sad. Right? Why am I
yeah.
Like why am I
I think it's definitely a trend I'm seeing post-COVID world where, especially in what we're consuming. And I feel like a lot of the mainstream things that we're seeing are very serious, and we're all like, we're done. Like, we're capped at serious for a bit. Like, we need things. That's why I think Top Gun did so well. People are like, I just need something fun. Like, I just want to go and I just want to like breathe for a second and just enjoy myself.
Well, so the serious epiphany moment for me for the pandemic was last year when all the vaccine crates happened. I just had a big giant realization that the world in general, like, I'm not talking people singularly, I'm talking the world in terms of systems of power, have no integrity whatsoever.
Hmm.
And it kind of put into perspective that it put a lens into the world for me personally, that I made me realize that for the rest of my life, I am never going to be looking at these systems of power with any kind of reverence or respect the way I did prior to the pandemic ever again. And I will never trust them. And that is a big, like, personal thing. Now, I could become very cynical about it, or I can look and see and try to find different magic in the world. Again, not going into different, like, your perspectives, but I think honestly what's happened with a lot of us, because we're not out of the woods yet. Now we're dealing with the economic fallout of the pandemic. Now we're dealing with and we're dealing with some of the realities of that. So what's happening now is we probably have another 2 or 3 years of a shitty time ahead of us. Now it's a different shitty time, right? But I think it's woken people up to some of the ideas of what the pandemic, how what the pandemic was used for, what's continually trying to happen. And so now, what a guy like me is like, I am no longer gonna look. If my leader goes to me, if the sky is blue, I look up, and I worry if I agree. That's where I've come to. And it doesn't matter who the party is, right?
That is such a if everybody took that from this situation, I just that kind of critical thinking moment, then that is a great value.
Yes.
Just to stop and ask a question and I'm assess what you know, assess what information you have, where it's coming from, what motivation someone might have for saying those things. And having those mental catches is a huge value.
Well, I never was a big I never was a big believer in the whole trust the science thing, and not because I don't think of scientific. I just, you affirm science. You don't trust it. You affirm it, right? Right? You affirm it. So, but again, I what I've seen from the aftermath of this is, again, I came up with both my 9th and my 10th rules of success for the pandemic. The 9th rule is be detached from all outcomes. Because if you can do that, now again, ego will get in the way of some of those outcomes for us all. And I am a big enough man to admit that I am always going to be vulnerable to this. But I'm also a big enough man to say that if I can detach myself from the potential of it, like, the best thing will happen if I do this, or the worst thing will happen if I do this, and I just accept that if I just do the thing, things will happen, and not worry so much about the outcome, it's a lot harder to manipulate me. It's a lot harder to make me buy in. It's a lot harder. I will question everything. And as a result, I have become a very, very unique kind of monster in this world, because now it's just like, now you can't sell me on an idea necessarily. You have to sell me on the merits of what you're doing. It's a much different, that's a much different place to be. That all said, I am human. I have my biases, and that will never entirely leave me. But if someone attacks an idea of mine, it's not an attack on me personally. It's something and I think that's something that even now, post pandemic, it's something I'm still very aware of. People have bought into certain ideas, and that is going to be a very interesting thing to deal with in the years to come. That's the serious one. The not so serious one is rule 10. If in doubt in your direction, choose the one that's the most fun. Because that's everybody says that should be rule 1, but rule 1 is show up, and I find that's a very, that one I've yet to top that rule, so that one's going to always be rule 1. But rule 10, it's the flip side. It's like, I can choose to be cynical, and I can choose to be and I can choose to let myself be caught up in a world of my expectations not being fulfilled, or perhaps, or I could choose to go the other way and realize that maybe the flaw isn't the fact that I isn't the world, but my expectations to begin with. And maybe what I should do instead is actually look at the magic of the world and see it for what it is. Also, I am way too old for cynicism. Cynicism is for young people that can't handle life yet. Right? Right.
Yeah,
So I'm
no, I love that. I love everything you just said.
yeah.
Yeah, because I've been very much on the same path,
Yeah.
and really working on it, and especially pandemic, um, is just the level of control that I wanted to have on outcome, and to let go of that, and to do you play poker?
Sometimes I'm not great. I get too aggressive when I win.
Ah,
I'm good.
you're you
No, I
need
did that. That's just a not just this character flaw, because what happens is, especially like in like Hold'em, I'll play my hands carefully early. But when you get a chip lead, what you want to do is you want to isolate and wipe people out. But I get to, this comes from me. I'm not, so I used to play Magic. I am the ultimate nerd. I'm just letting you know this up front. Right? I used to play Magic the Gathering, and I'm a red. So I like blue, like the color blue, but in Magic, I'm red deck. I'm red. Red is the more aggressive color. It's the color they call it passion, but basically it's a deck that wants to win in 4 turns or less. It's an
Okay.
incredibly efficient. It's an incredibly efficient deck. It's a glass cannon, but it's incredibly efficient. And
Yeah,
so
that if you translate that aggression in poker, it
you
could
can,
be bad.
it can be very bad.
Yeah.
But it can be very, very bad, because the my natural inclination is just to go for the kill, right? Right. That's my
Yeah,
natural
and you
inclination.
and poker's well, so the reason I ask is because and part of the reason why I'm so into poker right now, like moderately obsessed,
That's
is
okay.
because all of those, and I'm reading a book right now called Thinking in Bets, and it's how translatable those are to life, and patience, and you can't control outcome. You can assess your risk. You can know what you know, and you can surmise what you don't. You can try to factor things out. But even if you have the best starting hand, I hate pocket aces, by the way, because it's you learn pretty early that they can really bite you. And
That's when you need to be
so,
your
but
most
if you
aggressive. That's when you need to
uh,
be your most aggressive,
exactly, right.
actually,
So you have
because
to learn how to do it. But the
yeah,
hand itself, like I think when you first get started, you're like, pocket aces. I won already. You're already counting your chips, right? And then you learn that you're not even close. You're not even close. So you can control what you have, and you can control what you know and behaviors of others. But there's always going to be outcomes. It could go any way. You can have somebody who called, and it makes no sense that they called, and they managed to hit their straight or their flush or whatever. They
you love that.
like, so that's just one of the many things, and it just correlates so beautifully to this time in the world, this time in personally in my life. And I think for most people it can, but that's when you pay attention to those lessons, and you pay attention to really driving that home internally of like, just be present, do something, do the things that you enjoy. How much time do we have? How many days do we get in? And then also, things aren't always going to go the way you think, plan, or hope.
Yep. In fact, back count on that. So
Yes.
my least favorite hand in poker is pocket jacks.
Yes, yeah. That's typically like people, a lot of, well, yeah, one of my friends, he he calls it, I think he heard it from somebody else, I'm not sure, but he regularly says, treat them like colorful sevens.
They kind of are, because you feel bad folding and you feel bad playing. You don't win either way with
Yes.
that hand.
Yeah.
Pocket queens, yes. Pocket kings, yes. King ace, yes.
Yes.
Aces, jacks. you're like, shit. Like,
Yeah, you're like, yeah. I mean, and that's another beautiful thing about.
yeah.
I mean, I could go on and on about all of these moments where I'm like, you learn these things in poker, and then you're like, oh, this is so true to life as well, which is like being okay with getting rid of your hand. Like sometimes if you're reading the situation and you have pocket aces, and you're like, I know how that player plays, and I know that my aces are probably not good, to let it go. And
no, it's like you said, when you're playing pocket aces and like when you have the best hand or one of the best hands, what you're trying to do is you're trying to in the pre-flop get rid of as many people as you can, because if you can do that,
yeah.
right,
Then it's an odds game. Yeah,
it's an odds game, right? Now, if you can't, if all of a sudden you see like 4 or 5 different people playing, you're like, because now you can't read the room. There's no way to do that, right?
Yeah.
Right. The flop, and all of a sudden, and it's too. I've seen this when you get like 8 people, and then 5 go in on a hand, and then the flop is just random.
Yeah.
Then it's like you get that moment where all the players are like, "So what do I do?" Because there's a lot of you, and I might be the worst person here, right? Now, do you go aggressive and wipe everybody out and take the pot, or do you, or are you playing into somebody's hands when you put that bet in? Because also the other thing too, when it's that many players, somebody lets land something at some point, and then
somebody got it.
Yeah, somebody got it, and now they're
especially by the river. Somebody hit something. If you have 5, but I have another friend who said, he regularly says, "Don't play the hand, play the player."
Yes. No, he's absolutely right. He is absolutely correct.
And so if you're in that pot with 4 people and you have one guy who or lady, though it's usually a guy, who one person, there we go, who is, shoves, and you're just like, this person's been very quiet, so like I may have it, there's a very like good chance that person has the nuts, like I'm out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Playing people is really important. When I played, but Magic's the same way in poker. It's a resource management game. Like it is very much right. They're both resource management. They just do it. They do it slightly differently.
You shouldn't have told me that. I've never played Magic. Now I'm going to have to go and figure out how to play.
So the big difference, it's a resource management game. Like when you get right down to it, and for you, my dear, I think my money says you would love the color green. Green is all about lands. And that's you. It's big, thumpy creatures and lands. And something tells me, right, as a way to get into the game, that would be for you. That would be the color to be like, I like this color. It does lots of cool things, and it really does, right? But
I have to. I mean, I was gonna share this podcast with my family anyways, but my cousin is like, he's ever since he was a kid has been all about green. So the fact that you see green in me, well, he'll just be tickled, I'm sure.
No. Like, you play Magic, it's like, it's just a basic green deck. Could be like, why green? Because the green is the ultimate resource card. So, and I bring up Magic because in Magic, I was the rogue deck builder. I was the guy that would go to a tournament with a deck nobody else played because I got bored looking at the same decks over and over again. So what I always looked for in an environment was, okay, in Standard, the big main format at the time, it's like, what is everybody playing? And is there something I can do to mess them all up because they won't see coming? Because you can, what I have learned is if you want to really test somebody's skills in the game, put them in an environment where they're completely uncomfortable, where they don't know what's coming, and let's see what you're really made of, right? And my advantage, of course, being I already know what you're likely to do and play, just based on the fact that of you'll probably use the net. I'm a creative motherfucker. I'm going to torture you. All right, so I'm gonna come up with ways to torture you, and I love that interaction. I was never the best player, but I was always the guy that I'd always do fairly well. I would never win. Usually, I would never win the big one, but I wouldn't be last place very often either. I would usually be somewhere near the top, but not quite at the top. Right?
I don't know if this is similar to poker, but was it that I'm willing to take all the risk and be aggressive that would keep you from the top spot?
No. So here's the thing. Sometimes in Magic you'll build a deck that can't beat certain cards. right? Like sometimes I'll build a deck that's very unique and it's fun to play. But if I go against a certain card, I'm just toast. It just doesn't matter what I do. I'm just dead. I'm dead. It's accepting a weakness in the deck, right? It's like if I play against this card, I probably will not win, right? Now, if it's a common thing, you're probably shouldn't be playing this deck, right? That's one of the things about Magic is you'll build a deck from the ground up, and that deck might be good, but you might play against something that can deal with you easily, or at my heyday, at my absolute heyday, when I was really, really good at the game, it was just the fact sometimes you just go against better players too. Like people that like the one advantage of playing with the decks everybody else is using is you get the most practice. Sometimes I'm just literally playing something on the fly, so I don't have the same practice of the moves that someone that plays with a deck for a long time has. So I'm trading advantages too, right? That someone knows when's the right time to play a card. I may not have that nailed down yet, whereas they've already have it. And it's like game. Think of it like think it where Magic and Poker have common. It's resource management and it's about +1s, right? Right. It's about having that plus advantage over your opponent with either information you've gathered or resources, right? So those +1s add up to more victories, right? So the +1 I have is I know what you're playing. I know when you're playing it. I know likely how you're going to play it, and I'm going to mess with you because you're not.
I've
Yeah.
never had Magic described to me like this before, and I'm
Yeah.
really concerned that I'm going to touch base with you in 6 months and be like, so I'm like thousands of dollars down. And I'm like,
Yeah. You touch base and say, how dare you? No, because it's so. For me, if you want a free game that's really free player friendly, you won't spend a shit ton of money and you'll get cards fast. But there's an online game called Shadowverse. It's not quite as complex as Magic is. Still a resource management game. Most collectible card games are resource management games. You can get your taste of it there and not go broke, right?
okay.
Now, right? Yeah, that you get. I can give you some recommendations there, or if you do get into Magic, the format I'm going to recommend to you, although it might initially have a high barrier of entry, you'll save money in the long run. Commander.
Okay.
Commander
It's
is
also a card game or online?
No, it's a Magic the Gathering. It's a specific Magic the Gathering format, right? It's
Okay.
It's 100 card deck, but you get one copy of each card other than basic lands, right? And there's certain rules. It's cheaper. In the long run, it's a cheaper way of doing it.
Okay.
And you'd be like, and if you decide to get really competitive, I'll be seeing cards that when I was a kid I played against in your deck. I'll be like, okay, you have a problem. You got really competitive at this, right?
I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I have like bags under my eyes and like.
I know what you're talking about. I won. I'm like,
I'm very like aware of. I don't know how I found myself on this rabbit hole on YouTube, but I was watching YouTube videos of people unpacking the like original Magic packs, the like $100,000 pack, and they're like wearing like rubber gloves and all this stuff. And like, I don't know anything about Magic. I don't know anything about the cards, but I was just purely watching it for these guys' reactions. They're like,
these more. Yeah, because the very old sets, there's two things about the old sets. The old sets, you could actually tell which cards you had. The old plastics were terrible. You could actually kind of like jerry rig them a little bit, which is back in the day. You could. Now you no longer care about that because these are so freaking rare that they become very, very rare. But the second thing is like the original beta set, for example.
Yeah.
You get your hands on one of those, you might be able to pay your way through college today, which is just insane, right?
Yes.
Right.
And that was the sense that I got, that it was a big. I mean, I'm sure anybody who knows Magic knows like these videos.
Yeah.
But I don't know why it was recommended to me, but I enjoyed it.
You are secretly, you're not so secret. You're very passionate about what you do. I can already just tell, like, once you get in, if again, this is the other reason why Rule 9 is important to you too. Because once you're in, you're in. Like, there's no you just jump in and there's no coming back for you. Right? No, it's not for right. There's no coming back.
Yeah.
Right? Or you come back after a big journey and you go, I don't know if like that was me of Magic. I've been in and out of the game a few times now because I've done it. I've been there. I've competed in big tournaments. I've done well, and I've won my fair share of things. I've gotten my ass kicked my fair share of times. I don't have the same desire to compete anymore. Now I'm going to make the silly again. Make a deck that wins with coin flips because I am that asshole, right?
But
So
and I mean that's also you're tapping into that serotonin and endorphin hit, you know.
oh,
It's
absolutely,
like
totally,
yeah.
totally. No,
And,
I love the creative aspects of games like that's what
mm,
that's my high there. It's not I don't need to win. I like to win, but I don't need to win. What I need to do is I need to play my game out and do it. Have my thing do what it's supposed to do. That gives me joy. That's the real joy.
yeah, something else that I've surprising to myself that I've never gotten into, especially because I like to read fantasy and I like to write fantasy, is Dungeons and Dragons. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, and I feel like I would get really into it.
Yes, you would. Both ends, probably both ends. So here's the thing. I used to run a game called Shadowrun, right, which is similar to Dungeons and Dragons. And here's the thing. Here's another series I'm a really big fan of. Rogers the Lasney's Amber series, right? I
The
don't know if
book
you've read
series?
it. Yeah, I love
No.
the books.
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's like my favorite like concept, like world building is that series. That series is so good, right? So
I'm reading the Stormlight series right now. You brought up Brandon Sanderson, and one of the things I do like a lot about Brandon Sanderson is his world building. So
I think Zelazny's better. And that's right. And the reason I say that is he did it in less. Those books are 200 pages. So
okay,
those books are 200 pages, and you get. So I will say this: the second 5 aren't as good as the first 5. I openly acknowledge this. However,
I like that you said that there were 200 pages because then you just told me there were 10 books. So
yes,
I was like,
yes, yes, yeah. No, they're 200 pages. They're very easy to get into. It's about a prince that gets in a car accident and has amnesia. But his family's just like this mystical like family. They travel between worlds with tarot cards, which is like super freaking cool. And it ties into Oberon, Titania, Chaos, Order. It's really really cool. So what I did for Shadowrun, I bring this up is for Shadowruns, I applied the Amber stuff into Shadowrun because it was a cyberpunk. I thought cyberpunk and Oberon would be a pretty neat mix, and
yeah.
it turned out it really really was. And yeah, and I actually brought the tarot cards and actually you could travel to these worlds and fight these bosses and also build up let the characters build up. The thing about Dungeons and Dragons and Shadowrun though is this: if you're the GM, you let the players dictate where you go, and you have to have enough planning that you can go. If they wreck the boat, where do we go? Like that's pretty much it. But at the same time, like what? But sometimes it goes better than you could possibly imagine. For one session, I decided to have Puck, like actual like Shakespearean like
Yeah,
Puck,
yeah.
right?
I
In
didn't.
the
My first thought was not from the real world. It was.
yeah. Shakespearean Puck, and they fell for it so completely. It was like I just brought him into custom chaos. That's all I wanted
Yeah,
to
I was
do.
gonna say
Whatever it is.
chicanery. That
Right, yeah,
chicanery is
right.
what. Yeah.
They ended up working for him. That was not my plan. That was their. They ended up working for him. That's the thing you gotta look at. That's the cool thing, right? And I did, and all I did was just again do some chicanery and some hocus pocus. They bought it completely to such a degree that they actually went from my initial arc of working for this Mobbots to working for Puck. And
I
it was like this is hilarious, and I didn't plan that, so I had to bring Puck back because now it's like oh shit, this was a one and done. Now it's not. Now
I
he's
like how you just now had like mad wizard eyes. They're like they did it.
yes,
They
yes,
did it.
yeah, pretty much yes.
It's
Total.
amazing.
No, it's
Yeah.
true. It's true though. I mean, that's the thing. Like you craft a story and you get. I mean, it's a high. You craft a story and people not only are playing your game, but they buy in. Like that's what you do. Like I mentioned like being detached from all outcomes, but I mean, but we want to buy into ideas. That's why
Yeah.
we love stories so much. We want to buy into it. And if you give
I
people a reason to buy, they do it.
I love that there's this ribbon going through all of the topics that we've talked about so far
Yeah.
of just paying attention to human nature and I mean all of these things that like we're getting excited about comic books and movies and books and poker and magic and but they're really the continuous thread through it all is that we like to watch people and we like to see what they do and
Yeah.
we like to see how we interact with them and what is in their nature to do and why and how fascinating human beings are in that and everything else around it is kind of just the packaging but at the core of it that's what we're I hope it's okay that I'm combining us both in this is like that's what gets us excited about all of these things is that interaction and that truth.
Well, Miss Kara, this is my 843rd episode of Just Joshing. Your episode 843, right? So that means I've had 842 approximately conversations with different people. Even if you want to knock out some of the two-parters, that's fine. Still, hundreds of conversations with people. They've all, in one way, they're the same, but in the other way, they're very, very different, and they ever go in ways I expect them to. For example, I was expecting, with you, someone very based on our interactions on Facebook, someone that would be very shy. Even though you get into rabbit, you told me you'd be getting into it, but there would be a more of a guardedness to you. That
Mm.
actually that actually isn't the case at all, right? I almost want to ask this as an aside when I meant to ask you to come on the show, right? Why were you so? I don't know if hesitant was the right word, guarded, because it doesn't seem to be your nature, right? So
Yes, because um uh so I had written the three books and I had this ties in. I had very clear plans. I was going to write a book every year. And there was a lot of unexpected feelings that came after publishing the trilogy and finishing it and saying goodbye to those characters and saying goodbye to that world and putting it out there for other people to read and managing expectations, managing ideas of what success looks like
ah,
and what success feels like and um and the other books I started writing them. I started writing two other books and they just didn't come. And so it was hard for me. And so I wasn't writing at that time. And so to talk about writing in a time when I was struggling to find my story again, to find that place again where to find some clarity where I had like that core skeleton concept that there's always like a philosophy behind what I want to talk about in a book. It's not necessarily it's everything else builds on that one philosophy. And I was kind of discombobulated in finding that core philosophy at the time and I didn't have it. And
mhm,
so I was hesitant to talk about writing when it was just kind of a hard thing for me at the time.
okay,
And because writing and writing books is so important to me, and it's
yeah,
so it that to struggle with it at the time was difficult. But um, I'm writing again, and
okay.
and it's clear now, and it feels clear, and it feels right. And so now I was like, I could talk about writing again because it's not so not to sound very dramatic, but it not so painful.
No,
Um,
I get it because there's a question in your head if you ever would write another story again too, and
yeah.
that was a legitimate fear.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that was a legitimate fear. And sometimes, so when I wrote my first trilogy, which was a very happy accident, all things considered, so there was a scene in it where have you ever actually had one of the main characters talk to you and say, "You need to kill me now"? Because that's actually had literally happened, because I was at the end of the story. Like that, the thing is, I could have delayed it a little bit longer, but honestly, it was the right time to get to the end of the story,
Yeah.
right? And it was the big final battle, and it's like, well, if nothing changes, then what was the point of telling the story? Something had to go. The other thing too was she was my favorite character to write in the book. That was the other thing too. That was really painful, but it had to be her because I had to go back to the beginning of the story, right? My main character in the first book went out into the world alone. It made sense with the way the story had to end that he had to walk away from this world alone, and the catalyst for that was her, and it was painful because it had to be painful. Right.
That's something that I feel like people who just read books and don't write books or like they want those big moments. It is very difficult and takes a lot of bravery. I know that sounds dramatic, but it takes a lot of bravery to kill them off. You know, it's like people who pick up a book, they care about the character. I promise you don't care about those characters as much as the writer does. And it's hard to make bad things happen, and that's one of my regrets from the Eloy trilogy is I should have had worse things happen, not for just for the sake of it happening, but I just needed that bravery. I needed that bravery to really put him in pain. And he was, but it was more like I was very focused on the psychology of it. So the core of Eloy is the kind of the discomfort and the loneliness of ambition. And so I really focused on that. So, and that was what was important to me. But it's still a story. It's still a fantasy, and things happen. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff in there. And it's funny that you're saying that. Like, did the characters ever tell you that? I didn't have that feeling about a death, though I'm sure I will eventually. I had that with relationships in my books. Not one of the relationships in the books was planned. I was not particularly interested in talking about a great deal about romance. There was just kind of more other things that I thought were more interesting and more important. And they came up. Like, it was like the characters were together and you're like, this doesn't make any, like, it felt like them saying like, yes, this makes sense for us. Like this, and there's multiple relationships in those books that I just didn't anticipate. I didn't plan for them. So it's interesting how that happens. It's particularly fascinating when you feel it's one of the best feelings in the world, and it's also one of the most unsettling feelings in the world when you're writing a book and it reaches a point where you feel like you're not the one writing it anymore. Like you're somehow guided by something else.
I have figured out something about you.
What?
This is, and I think you mentioned this earlier about being a reformed control freak, right? A little bit.
I wouldn't say I'm fully reformed, but I'm working on it.
No. I would never go so far as to say no. You're all you. I think just based on just our very brief conversation, I can even tell looking into those eyes of yours, there are gears within gears in there, man. You're always thinking, always going, and that's right. Like I can already tell. Like, no, you stopping that is like, forget that shit. That ain't happening. Right.
You are 1,000% correct.
Yes.
Yeah. There's no stopping it. And the funny thing is I'm really learning to be really okay with that.
Yeah, no, it's who you are. Like you are again. This is actually I think our first real conversation. So right. So 1 hour in, this is what I figured out about you. You are probably you're an incredibly passionate individual. So passionate, I would go so far to say that yes, you want to be referred to as someone smart, because I'm sure, right? I can just see it with how calculating you are on some of the things you say. But the thing is, that actually cloaks the fact that really deep down, you want to really just jump all in, and that's what disciplines you, so you just don't jump all in at once. Your cerebral intellect is probably I wouldn't say a crutch exactly. It is your checkpoint, and the fact that you would be the one person I would be like, hey, You want to just randomly go skydiving and land on a pile of jelly beans somewhere, and you'd be like, I'm in. I'm so in. I'm so
I actually thought I was
in.
like, I would definitely do that.
Yes, right. I'm so in, and your brain, but the thing is, and I just say that just based off the top of my head. Just watch, just my little observations. Number one, I probably should never play poker against you. You probably would take my money.
I was just having the exact same thought about you because you just read me so well.
Oh, I read people. I read people fantastically well, to the point I actually scare some people because again,
Yeah, no, that was bullseye on, and to the fact that I had the exact same thought in the exact same moment was, I don't want to play poker with you.
Oh no, you be wearing the shades, the hat, everything you
whole
could
thing.
to hide your body language because you
I got
because
the mask on. And
oh no, I'd see it. I totally will. Like because it's one of those things. Like I'm testing a game right now for somebody, and how far that relationship goes, I find out this weekend. But I already know my boss and how he plays poker. I already know how to beat him, right? But I already know how to beat him. I don't care. The one thing he has going for him is I don't need to win.
you
That's
know what?
where I don't need to win. If I needed to, right? There's a difference. That's why he beats me. Because if I actually I don't have the same drive to win he does. But because he has such a strong drive to win, I know how to break him. And that's it's an interesting, right? It's understanding that, right? Understanding people. Yeah, you can learn how, again, as you say, you play the player, not the person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's take a look here. What he's asking here before we go back here. Depends on your goals. Like honestly, it depends on your goals. Are you going for like indie? Are you looking for particular publishers? Are you looking for fonts and writing software? Everybody recommends Scrivener, and that's a good one. But I mean, whatever's in your budget, man, you can make anything work. Like we are in a very interesting time that way.
Yeah, I use Scrivener a little bit and didn't get really into it. I mean, I just use Word.
Yeah. No, I use OpenOffice because I'm cheap. But,
hey man, whatever works. Truly.
Well, yeah. Well, you don't need. So interestingly enough, I tend to do most of my novels, not my current one, but most of them, I actually write them by hand first, and then I actually type them.
That's wild.
It's because it hits the brain differently. That's why.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're using two different parts of your brain to write a book when you do it that way.
I like to do. Sometimes I'll just do like stream of consciousness by hand, and sometimes those always kind of come out as stories or more characters. They just flow that way. But the funny thing about at least in my experience, about kind of finding your pattern in writing and getting a book done is trying a lot of different things and failing a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of fall out of it. It's not like, I feel like when you're getting started, you don't just sit down and you're like, I wrote a book. It's like you sit down, you start writing a book, how you heard somebody did it, some other writer, and you try it their way. I write from 8 to 12, and then I take a coffee break, and then it's like, so you try that and it works for 2 weeks or a week or whatever, and then you stop writing. It's a lot of that start and stop, and then you hit it. And so my thing is I write 500 words every day.
Okay.
And I it sounds like a small amount because it's good for the brain to be like, that's not really that much. And so it's manageable, but that's a novel in 6 months.
That's not, no, you can write a whole story that way. And also the other thing too, like it varies. 500 is I wouldn't say it like a low expectation, but it's I'm willing to bet you can shit out 500 words in like 20 minutes if you really want to.
It depends on there are times dialogue flies out.
Yeah.
And but if I'm so particular about my word choice, and unfortunately this comes out in how I speak, because I'm so particular about my word choice. So I kind of stall on my words sometimes. And so sometimes I'll have people try to fill in my sentences or finish what I'm trying to say or assume what I mean. And it's like, I'm not lost. I'm just, my brain is so patterned to find, like, navigate through the pathways to find exactly what I want to say. So those 500 words can sometimes take a long time.
And that's control freak right there.
Yes.
That's control freak, and that's but it makes sense too, because
Yeah.
as I've gotten older / wiser, question mark on the last one.
I would say wiser for sure.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I wonder. We'll just leave it like that. I'm certainly human. We'll leave it at that. Sometimes I wonder. But the thing about it is, I realize it's how you tell the story is super, super important. It's
So yeah.
how. It's not, and especially if you're going for a very particular feeling, the word choices become very important. Now, in a draft, like a rough draft, just get it out. I find that
Yes.
yeah, just get the damn thing out. It's better out than in. You can always fix it later. All right.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, first I would say I feel like the wisest people always question their own wisdom, so that makes sense. And but I've also heard that I remember reading once that George R.R. Martin goes back and edits the things that he wrote before, and I'm not about to take George R. R. Martin to task, because I hate when I see people do that. It's like, he's got to take his time doing whatever he's going to do. But if that's true, I'm not surprised that it takes so long for him to get books out, because it's like, how do you even do that? Like, how do you even get ahead when you're editing backward like that?
So it's funny because I accidentally met him.
How do you accidentally meet, like?
Because again, I am the ultimate nerd. So I used to play even Yu-Gi-Oh. Yu-Gi-Oh is a way more broken mess of a card game than Magic is. It's a mess. Like cost in card games is super important, and when there is no cost, it you can do some silly shit, and you just do some silly. But I digress. So this is what happened. I go to this tournament to play in this tournament. It's at a convention. So this is pre-Feast of Crows. George R. R. Martin is a last-minute substitute for Spider Robinson. I have never lost a tournament so fast in my life. Just get me out of here, right? I just played long enough so that everybody else could go advance. I was not completely selfish, but the moment I was 2 and out, I was gone. I went and met George R. R. Martin, who was reading from Feast of Crows. There, he talked about it. He talked about his book process. He talked about why it took so long, and he does it. He will go and read. So I don't like talking about my book process because everybody goes, I'll read it's like 2,000 words a day, and the next day I'll just take out 3,000 words, and then right. But and we'll get to your question in a second there, Dev. I promise. But the thing is, when it's the danger of perfectionism, and it's the danger of perfectionism because you pursuing. So this is my opinion on Martin. My favorite George R. R. Martin novel is Tough Voyaging. It's a science fiction novel he did way back in the 80s. It's great. It's fantastic.
Like, what year was it that he won his first Hugo? It was like the 70s.
Yeah, no, hit that era of Martin, like that era is fantastic. I love his novels. And he's an example to me. He's an example to me of, and I get it. Like, he's got so much going on. Fuck him. Who am I to fucking say anything, really, right? But at the same time, I look at him and Pat Roth, the same thing. They write these intricate, complex works.
Yeah,
and the reason why Brandon Sanderson defaults right now as probably the most prolific fantasy author right now is because
I would say without question.
He's the default. They're his competition, but he's blowing them away right now, and partly because he's so prolific. Are there people who write as well as Sanderson in fantasy? I think so. I'm a big Robin Hobb fan. I think she's amazing, right?
Right. I have not. It is almost an embarrassment at this point that I haven't read anything by Robin Hobb.
Oh no. The Assassins. Okay, so I can't say anything about the third trilogy. I read only to a certain point, but her first 9 books are amazing. But it's Robin
Yeah.
Hood, they're just incredible. Right? She's great. But again, not as prolific as Martin, but still come out regularly. Jacqueline Carey, I got a bit of a soft spot for. She's incredibly gifted, makes these really interesting, it's interesting. It's interesting that was protagonist was so important to, like, that kind of protagonist was so interesting choice. I like the fact that like there are some great. Fonda Lee does some really cool shit with the Jade stuff. Like it's just there's some really great fantasy. And if I want to look at indie, Christopher Russell is someone I think that does really good stuff. But it's Sanderson because he's always releasing stuff. Now that I
So
love
much.
Stormlight. I love Stormlight, but honestly,
I'm on the 3rd book. I haven't read the 4th book yet, so no spoilers.
I'm on book 2. I
Okay.
have all my stuff was in storage. I still haven't found all my Sanderson stuff yet.
Okay.
I literally
So then I won't do spoilers.
Yeah. So here's the thing. My choice between Fonda Lee and Brandon Sanderson came down to this fact that Brandon Sanderson's books were bigger. That's why I left them in storage. That was the deciding factor there. So
That's so interesting that you say that, because I have been so in my Kirkus review for the first Eloy, I think the sentence is like a satisfying story in a relatively short volume.
yeah.
And I was like, this is not a short book. It's like an average size, I think it's 100,000 words. Like, it's not necessarily, but for fantasy, it is. And
Yes.
it's just like, no. And but for fantasy, when you're looking at Brandon Sanderson's 1,300 page novel, it's tiny, but I was reading reviews on I can't remember what, but writers or watching BookTube, and people were saying, this is the book I chose for my big book this year. And I think that that's so important for fantasy writers or indie writers in general to keep in mind, is a lot of even the most voracious readers will typically pick 1 or 2 tomes. So it's like, when you want to build your audience and you want to get more readers, that might be a barrier for you.
All right. So I'm going to answer this question because I think that we're both going to have some fun with this. So I accidentally got traditionally published.
That's amazing. How do you accidentally get traditionally published?
So I came back from Calgary from Arizona, got my ass kicked. The reason why my teeth on top are fake, and I took a few years away from writing and recovered. I have a very like intricate story of my own trials by fire, right? So sometimes the question there wasn't, right. Stein is a very cool choice, actually. He's a very cool choice.
I agree. And how, how many of those books that I churned through when I was a kid and made me, part of the reader and writer I am today, for sure.
Yeah. So for me was I decided to do poetry. So this is not only did I get published traditionally, I got published traditionally as a poet first, and that was it. So that's
wild.
Yeah. So here's what happened. I wanted to do a longer poem. So I wrote the story about a slave boy looking in a tower, and these dragon masters in this compound in the family, and he's wondering what's more. I really liked it. I wanted to know what happened next. And in chapter 2, he kills his dragon master and goes into the wilderness. So I have to know what happens next.
Yeah.
So chapter 3 is his first night alone in the wilderness, coming to terms with the fact that he's killed his first person, right? Coming to terms with that. He's alone. He's like, what is he doing? Kind of thing. Like, still some of my favorite writing of all this time. Chapter 4, he goes deeper into the wilderness to see this new world. And then 4 became 5. And then this poetry collection I have, it's like, no, fuck that. This is what I'm doing. So I wrote this epic, like, poem kind of story. And then I go to the comic shop, and then I see somebody I worked with at a Kinko's. Her name is Florence Chan. Has actually got a comic book published. Like, it'd be kind of cool if I had some illustrations to go throughout the story. And so I asked her very nicely, and she would draw them for me, and we came to a price, and she did. She did a cover. She did all kinds of kick-ass stuff. My master plan was to publish this indie and do print run, like via Smashwords as an ebook, and do print runs for conventions. So I published it on Smashwords. Someone I interviewed years ago Rick buys my book, goes, "Hey, I really like this. What are you going to do with it?" And I just told you. And she goes, "Well, listen, I just made a deal with Ingram Spark. I started a publishing house. I'll publish your book." And that's how you accidentally get traditional.
That's not accidental. That's you planting seeds years before and
Oh,
creating those relationships that matter. That's not
no,
accidental.
no. I know it. I call it. Listen. I don't think accidents are a terrible thing. And I just say it like that for this reason.
I don't think so either, but I do
Yeah.
think it's more. I think you need more credit in this
Oh
scenario.
no. Hey. Listen, I have been doing interviews for 20 years. I have met some amazing people. And on a personal note, I kind of want to do something crazy with you at some point because I think we would be a lot of fun to do something with. I think that'd be hilarious.
Crazy?
Right?
How?
I
Are we
don't know.
gonna skydive into jelly beans? Because I'm in.
Okay, maybe I had me promise somebody else I would do skydiving with them, but I'm sure we could come up with something because
I love whatever. What are you thinking? Because
No. We'll talk about that off the air. We'll see. We'll kind of see. Like I don't want no boundary. I just something just tells me if somewhere down the road we're going for. I definitely think you'd be fun to hang out with, right? But
I totally agree. I'm in.
Yeah.
Even if I'm in for any kind of like podcast, books, or even a game of Magic where you teach me how to play Magic the Gathering. I've
done Magic. I've done Magic on the air. So I'm totally not against that. But the thing about it is like I look at it like this. I do things. This goes back to what we talked about controlling outcomes, right? This is the absolute best version of this. This was better than I could have possibly have imagined, right? Now I did a lot of things. That made it work out in my favor.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not going to ever take away from that.
Yeah.
But the reason why it worked out was because I didn't do it in a way where it was like I'm intentionally trying to cultivate favor. And no, what I did was I was genuine.
Yeah.
And because I was genuine, people have this. People have now. I do sell stuff. I do an advertising business for creatives with works and stuff like that. And I mention it. And sometimes I will, if I feel like maybe the person would do something, I'll pitch it. But I'm not above that sale. But then at the same time, what I've realized is I didn't invite you here just because I invited you here because I wanted to talk to you.
Yeah.
There was no other reason behind that, right? I was told you'd be a very awesome guest. I said, okay, let's find out. And you're one of my favorite chats this year so far. So I mean that's and I see you enjoy, and I think I've been a pleasant surprise for you as well. So
no, it's been an absolute blast. It's been I think that there's a whole sea of things that we could dive into to talk about for sure.
Yeah, no, totally. No, you'd be a lot of fun. I could definitely tell that, right? So, but that's just it, right? There was no plan. There was no. I am going to manipulate you into my power crushes. Ha 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 ha. Maybe do like a Dr. Claude voice, right?
That's the way the most beautiful things happen, and that's how. Because it kind of ties back to what you were saying too about what is important now, and it's like being in those moments and enjoying those moments, and then there's this byproduct of that comes from authenticity that could be an opportunity or anything. So
okay, take it like this, okay? We've had a lot of fun in the last hour, right? We've had a lot of fun, and I read you like a book, and you were like, I like this. He actually he pays attention. That made an impression, and I've made a good impression, and vice versa. So now, if I go, you want to come back again, you're more apt to come back again. But let's say down the road, there's a convention somewhere in the States, maybe like a Dragon Con or something, and I meet you. Yeah. Well, but we're more prone now to hang out and talk more. Absolutely. Because of the feeling this creates. That's the thing, right? So when I say it's everybody thinks accident's like a terrible word, but that's it, right? But it's not. What it is like I look at it like this is so my very first art lesson, I've been actually dabbling in drawing now too. I'll actually show you something really cool before we go off
Yeah.
the air.
Oh, I
Right.
think I've seen you post things.
You have seen me post. No. I haven't
Yeah.
posted this. I have not
Okay.
posted this.
Well, I mean, I've seen your art. I've seen you post art.
Yeah. So going out of my comfort zone and doing that. But that benefit has met. So I met somebody that works literally at Marvel Studios right now, and she's drawn on the show, right? Like and this was not me just magic. This is me just simply going out there and saying, would you like to do this? And what I realized, my personal frustration in the current city I'm currently living, trying to go and meet people here again has been a frustrating experience. But here, like this in this little magical box I've seemed to have created, I have been very blessed to meet some incredibly talented people like yourself that,
Thank you.
from what I can generally tell, want the same things I want at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right. And that's refreshing for me. But I also would say it's also refreshing for you too, because I think one of the big things sometimes we wonder, it's interesting that you said ambition is a lonely path, because something about when you said that made me realize you're someone that's very driven and has pursued a lot of things. But the price for that is you're going, like, I'm a freelancer right now. I don't know where my I'm in personal struggle right now. I don't know where my next paycheck's coming from, right
Yeah.
this very minute. But it's also the fact, but eventually I'm going to figure out how to make this work. And when I do, right, when it works the way it wants to work and where I need it to work, I'm going to be free to do all kinds of cool shit. And but the thing about that is most people get caught up in their own, like what everybody else expects them to do. I'm free in a way very few people are. But there's also a bit of loneliness that comes with that too, because it's like I want other people to come to this point, but then you realize not many people dare to take that journey on their own, whatever that actually looks like. And so it's interesting. So the thing about something like this for you and me both is it's also kind of a reaffirmation we're not alone pursuing this crazy life and crazy dream, and maybe we're not so crazy after all.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And maybe, that it is important to be able to manage that ambition that's just in us. It is part of us. We can't shake it, nor should we want to, but to mitigate that loneliness and to feel like we're on that. I mean, there's a lot of these things we have to do, especially writing, that we have to do on our own. And we are in our own heads. And if all of us, all of the writers who are, would watch this, or we have a very vibrant imagination, and it's very easy to get lost in it. And it's also, I think, important to realize that not everybody lives their life like that. And so it is a beautiful thing, but it is also a thing that you can get lost in. And that connection and those interactions are everything in life. And it is emotionally hydrating, and we need it.
So I'm going to ask a question. Please don't punch me for asking this question. How old are you? I have to ask. I'm curious about this, so please don't punch me.
No, it's fine. I'm 37.
Okay, I'm 40. So
very similar in age. I had a feling because of we like the same
we're
same in entertainment.
Same era, same timing, same entertainment, but also character at the end of the day. Plot moves the character. The plot that's what it comes right down to. It's just the story you're ultimately going to be Okay, so I'm doing right now. Here's my plot right now. I have a female version of Parker. She's a night witch from a parallel universe killing Knights of the Round. That's the plot. Here's the story. Can a person who's been bad for a very long time become good again? What is a good person? And what does that mean for her? The plot of killing the Knight of the Rounds, right? First of all, I made the most punchable face Percival you'll ever see. Like he just you'll want to punch him when you meet him, kind of thing. Right? He's that kind of scumbag. But it's that reflection of who she is now versus who she was. and they tie in, and the fact that can a character change? Can you change?
So your vote for plot versus character is what
for
you're
a big
saying?
time, yeah,
Yeah, same.
yeah,
and it's also because it's a perfect example for me is Mad Men.
mm-hmm.
Because that show was so consistently written where the character of Don Draper always acted within his character. And so things happened in that show because Don Draper was always Don Draper.
Mm-hmm.
Or like he was always that person. And it ended that way, and like the ending is exactly where it should have ended, because that's exactly who he was, and he was going to start that cycle right over again. So you can anticipate where he was going to go in the future, because that's always who he was, with like growth and development, but he was always himself.
My favorite, actually, again, now that I'm older and wiser and all that bullshit, I think one of my favorite shows now is MASH.
I haven't gone back and watched it.
It still holds up. It still holds up. And not only does it still hold up, I think, because it's interesting, because it uses an incredible backdrop, and it's the ultimate character exploration. I mean,
interesting,
because think about it, because they are dealing with surgeries, they deal with moral questions. One of my favorite quotes of all time is from that show, and it goes, at the end of the day, all you really have is your dignity and self-respect, and if you lose them, there's very little else in this life that it's super hard to get those back. And that's from MASH. That is not from that's a comedy show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's dealing with. It dealt with some incredibly adult themes. Characters did not live through the entire run either. Some characters died. War does it, right? So you met these characters, you fell in love with these characters, and it changed them, and in very interesting ways. And yet, through all those changes, they were still true to themselves. And I think and like I said, as a comedy, like there's been good comedy shows since, but I don't know if it's ever been taught, like, from the art form standpoint, it's ever been topped, right? Right? In terms of a living sitcom, I don't think a sitcom's ever hit that.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever sat and watched it. But that's definitely quite the sell. And I always find that comedians comedy is a whole other thing I can dive into in comedians. I, like, absolutely love going as an artist. I think I would recommend anyone who wants to be a writer or is working on their book and is nervous, go to an open mic show, because you can sit and be present to people being very brave for their art. There's nothing braver than stand-up comedy. And so that's a side note. But
I agree with
comedians, I find, make the best dramatic actors.
They are. No, they legitimately are. Because they understand, they observe human nature better. Actually, my favorite comedian right now, currently, I enjoy the way he does stuff. Dave Chappelle, right?
Yeah,
I love Dave Chappelle. I love how he tells. He's a great storyteller.
Great storyteller, and spends a lot of time really diving into deep thought, and second guessing his own beliefs and his own thoughts. And he's a very brilliant person.
Yeah, and I think so. Character development requires looking at yourself honestly. That's the real secret to it. You have to look at yourself honestly. I couldn't do a romance story until about 5 years ago. It's been the first time I really fell in love. And then when I had that experience happen to me, that changed my whole perspective on romantic relationships, right? And now it's like, I actually think I talk with women better now, which is great, right? Because I know what that actually feels like, right? So I don't steal like an artist, but no, I steal all the time. I steal from video games. I steal from Magic cards. I steal from comics. I steal from everything. Heck, I'll probably steal from this conversation. There's probably going to be a scene where she takes my money in poker somewhere, somehow, some way, right?
I hope so. So.
Yeah.
So about that too, I don't know steal like an artist. But so my favorite writer is Cormac McCarthy. Okay. And So I read Blood Meridian first, and I was like, this is my favorite book. I love this book. And then I wanted to go through his bibliography in order.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started at The Orchard Keeper. And if you read The Orchard Keeper, you see how influenced McCarthy is by Faulkner.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like very Faulkner-esque. And as you read in order, he falls into his own voice.
Yeah.
So and something that, you know, who is the, I mean, the first book is fantastic, but it's like there's a process to wean himself off of what he was clearly motivated by. I'm saying this like an absolute definitive. It's just my own, you know, when I read that, I would be shocked if that weren't the case. But you can't exist as an artist without being touched by many artists.
Mm-hmm.
And they all leave their fingerprints on you. It's impossible, especially with people who love story so much that we want to do our own. There's a deep love of seeing movies and books done really, really well. So we're gonna ingest it. It's gonna go into our composition.
Yes. Yeah, and I would add video games, really good, well told video games.
Absolutely, video games. Absolutely.
I would add that as well. But yeah, no, we look for story and we look for connection. But you put characters together by being true to yourself. That's like all these little elements are nice, but it's when you understand who you are, you find that's when you can tell your best stories, because then they'll come from here.
Yeah, and
as much as they'll come from here.
Yeah, and that's really why I find that I can't write until I have that core concept. Mm-hmm. So that core concept, and it always has to be something that and I don't necessarily know it now, but I'm working on it. And so before it was like the weight of ambition. The book I'm working on now is, what is home? What is the feeling of home, and how do you find home? And what does that mean? And what does it mean when you haven't found it yet? Mm-hmm. And so it's in that searching. So that's the core. That doesn't mean I figured it out. That doesn't mean that it's something that I know. It's something that I'm chewing on. And that's I'm using this to also help me explore these concepts.
And also often what I have found personally is the stuff I write about is the stuff I give a shit the most about at that moment in time. Right? There's something like not just me being selfish and going like, why do I care about change? Because there are things about, and I'm just being honest, there are things about myself I really love, but there are things about myself I think, can I change these things? Right? And because I've gotten to the point where I'm middle-aged, I've always been crazy, but now I'm openly I acknowledge it now, so it's just kind of fun. All right. And
well, I didn't, not to interrupt you. I just wanted to say like that Dev was leaving. That was such a sweet comment.
Yes. Thank you. You too. Have yourself a wonderful day, Mr. Dev. Right. But going back to like I think doubt is one of the coolest things about this. And I say that I believe in God, I believe in Jesus, all that stuff, but at the same time, I understand doubt. It's a wonderful, it keeps me honest. And that's that's how I look at it. So I've lived in the States. I lived in like I lived in a very Mormon community for 2 years. It was that kind of was.
Can I guess the state?
You can. You probably actually. I'd be very curious if you get the state, because it's not.
Oh, it's not Utah?
No, that's why I was as surprised as anybody else.
Nevada?
No. Arizona. Okay. So you're right area, but so I got the opportunity to work with one of my heroes. I didn't realize it was a Mormon community until I was in the van. So it's kind of one of those like, this is going to be interesting.
Instead of free candy, it said free books on the van. You're like, I'm getting in.
So yeah, exactly. It's just like it was just like I got in. Oh, it was so my favorite thing, and the reason why I don't think I ever converted to the church was really simple. They played baseball. Their baseball was very watered down. Okay, so I go up to the pitch, and the first thing I do is if the pitch goes across the plate, I let it go across the plate. Strike two. It's like where's strike one? Right? Why are we at strike two already? Are we right? So that's the first thing, right? So the second time I hit a foul ball, and as you can see, I swear like a sailor. So I said, "Shit!" Everybody was like,
Yes,
yeah.
You're out of here.
I wasn't out exactly, but they weren't so keen on me speaking quite as much after that because I didn't fit, and I knew I didn't fit. Like there's a biblical verse, new one in an old skin, and it very much applies to the. I never worry, but the thing is, it kind of made me look at the whole idea of doubt in a very different light. It's like I think that's healthy. Like doubt is healthy, and when
I
you
never
don't,
really thought about doubt like that.
yeah, it's healthy because think of it like this, okay? So so if you go if you look at doubt, I having convictions is great, but when the fact that like the second guessing of yourself,
Oh, I
this
see
again
what you're
goes
saying.
yeah right, the second
I'm with
guessing
you.
of yourself, right? But
Yeah.
even with I don't know what your belief systems are or what they are, whether it's God, lack of God, whatever the case may be, right? Um what I realize is having convictions good, but having that kernel of you could be wrong forces you to actually
Yes.
explore the concept. And you can't have a deep like again, you can't have a deep relationship with anything, dare I say, without doubt. Because it's the only way you're going to explore a relationship of any kind.
So it's
And
the avenue to the plasticity of your beliefs.
yes, no, it's the only way you're going to do it. It's okay to have doubts. In fact, you should. What like you can have your moments, right? And you
Yeah.
need to develop those moments. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
right. And that's the only way you make a better. I have questions like there are paradoxes with God. If you're so omnipotent, can you make a rock that you can't lift? If you're all these things, and if so, are you still powerful? Like there's all these like wonderful paradoxes, but even deeper stuff like human suffering, right? People going out there and the world we see today, right? And how we've treated each other in the last few years by and large, right? That does raise some doubts, right?
Yeah.
About people I looked at in higher esteem.
Yeah.
Now I don't look at them with the same level of esteem I did before because
Hmm.
of their behavior. It creates a doubt. Now there's a room, and I'm saying that there's room for a deeper understanding, a deeper relationship if that understanding someday comes. But maybe it doesn't, right? That's a very that honesty keeps you honest. And I like when you're talking about Chappelle, that's
Hmm.
why like that honesty keeps him honest.
Yeah.
And that's why he's such a good comedian.
And
Right?
it's authentic
Yeah.
and the this is a dangerous thing to talk about. I don't know. Like that's it's
I
dangerous to talk about. But so like I watched his recent, so I think it's his most recent stand up, and you can see where he says some things that would make people upset, but he's coming from a place of wanting to understand and a love of people and character, kind of what we were talking about, and wanting to
yeah.
understand people, and him being a factor in that understanding. Like, here's also where I'm coming from and how this factors in to how I understand people. And I think that's important and powerful and a beautiful human characteristic to have.
It's actually, dare I say, so you mentioned this stuff, dear. You're not on Facebook very much, right?
Correct.
You're right. I I am looking to replace Facebook.
Most
Like
people are.
most people are,
Yeah.
right? Most people are. But the reason, if I could break it down to just like again, last 2 years was definitely a big eye opening for some of the people I knew in my life.
Yeah.
But it's also I hate virtue signaling. I hate that little circle where I stand with this or I stand with that. It doesn't tell me shit about you.
especially when we're just talking about authenticity. So
yeah.
it's and again, another one of my favorite comedians is Anthony Jeselnik.
Yeah.
And he has a I don't even know if I would call it a bit, but he has a part where he's like, praying for so and so, and he's like, what they're really saying is, don't forget about me right now.
Yeah.
Be sure that I come up and you think about me, and I feel that way, and it's tricky because it's like I also want people are also figuring out their own thing, right? So like that is an indication of something else, and they want to be seen as in a certain way, and they want to be seen as supportive and loving, and that's important. But it's also
it's not, but okay. So this has been ironically that very writer I ended up working for gave me it. So he always cared about his reputation. I hate that word now. I hate it so much now. Yeah, because because the reason I hate it is people care about more how they're seen as than what they really are.
Yes.
And yeah, right. And the thing here's the thing, okay? I am not for everybody. I know it was shocking to me too when I realized this. It was so shocking.
Nobody's for everybody.
Exactly. But I realized that I'm going to piss people off, and that's actually not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to create reactions one way or the other. And in fact, the more authentic I become, the more those reactions become extreme. Right? The more extreme that reaction is going to be with some people. Now, some people are going to see me exactly for who I am. And those are the people I truly give a shit about. Some people are going to think I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. And while that is very good for my ego, that is probably something I should minimize as much as possible. On the same token, right? There's going to be people who think I am the absolute piddling shits. And those are the people I'm going to try to make the most money out of because they are the ones that are going to be the most invested in me. So I look at it like that. Yeah, right. I look at it like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how other people see me. It matters. What matters is who I am in these situations. And I don't give a shit what it looks like from the outside going in. You're not in my shoes. You're not going to understand. If you don't understand, you can ask, and I'll tell you. You can still disagree. And we can still disagree, by the way, even in that. But in that moment, I'm a human being again. If you just are going to judge me for the sake of, well, you don't do this or you don't do that, I don't care. All right. What I care about is, can I have a genuine conversation with a very, very amazing woman from wherever she currently is in California or in the West somewhere, right?
California.
Right. Can I have that amazing conversation? Can we talk about things? Can she feel like she's welcome to be herself? Because that's the other thing that's out there, right? I definitely hope in the last almost 2 hours now that we've talked is I don't really care. I don't care in like the bad way. I care you're you. I don't really care whether we agree or disagree with. I just care you're you, and I
definitely felt that, and I think that level of authenticity has made this conversation just an amazingly fun thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't have to worry about it. That's more important. That's more important to me than
and that's really, especially at this stage in my life. It sounds like we're in a lot of similarities. That is the thing I care about beyond anything else, is that kind of authentic connection with another human being. Like I want to know who you are. I want to know what you're into. I want to get into what you're into. Like I want to explore what you care about, how you spend your time. Like that's fascinating to me. I know what I'm into. Like open the world for me. That sounded very demanding, but it's like that's what you get with that authentic connection is you get pockets of the world open to you.
Yeah.
Or if you want to really be dramatic about it, you get whole universes open to you because that's their entire world. So it's like you get those moments, and it's truly the thing that matters to me the most now. I live for it.
Doing what you love with people you love and going with what works.
Yeah.
There's not a whole hell of a lot else out there actually when you get right down to it.
What value? Like that is the most valuable thing. It's what we've got.
Yeah.
But like for other writers, and in terms of talking about that authenticity and being brave to say, especially in this era, because there's so many things that in like I despise the phrase cancel culture. It's like, or the canceling somebody. It's like that's such a dehumanizing, not seeing a human as a human. Um, that it's so it's scary. It's scary to be an artist right now. It's scary to put something out that somebody can be upset about, and people get upset about a lot of things.
Well,
It's surprising. Like voracious readers got an email. I probably shouldn't say voracious readers got an email that somebody was upset about a trigger warning. It's like we can't give you a trigger warning for a trigger warning. I don't know. Like,
so see, I've actually going. See, this has made me. This is why I might be a monster in 10 years. This is why I might be a this is why I might be a monster in 10 years. I have come to the absolute. See, this is the thing about today. This is the beautiful thing about today. Okay. Yes, depending on the route you go, you have to fulfill certain expectations. I'm kickstarting my next 3 books next year, even if they don't work. I don't care. I'm going for the next 3 books. I'm trying to establish myself as I've created my own little box here, and it gives me a wonderful little advantage.
yeah,
I can give the finger to anybody else I want to at this point. Now I might be nice about it, but I will still like what I've come to realize is I want the freedom to be who I am. And I am no longer worried about pissing people off. Like I said, at this
yeah,
point, now I'm looking at you. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say like he's exactly a positive role model. But the one thing I can say about Trump that he does really smart is he knows how to exploit the people to hate him. He's very good
yes,
at it. He's very, very good at it. And there is a wisdom to that. If we're gonna create a world, if the world is gonna always have this, like, I hate the extreme reaction to the world. It used to be like you and I could have a conversation. Again, I am
yeah,
sure there are things we disagree on, but I think fundamentally we're not that different. But I'm sure there are things we disagree on. But I also
right,
think you and I would be adults about that thing. It'd be like, okay, I think we have to agree to disagree here. And I'd be like, okay, want a beer, tea, coffee, chocolate, ice cream, whatever, right? Right.
yeah,
And we would move on. What I have found is that we have such an extreme reaction to everything these days that, well, I'm just gonna piss somebody off anyway. Meh. And that's where I'm at. Like that's what I've hit, is I've hit
yeah,
that meh. I right. Um like I am going to worry about being the most authentic self I am. And
yeah,
what I'm going to worry about is this. If someone's going to put themselves in a box and dehumanize me, I don't want them in my life anyway. I think
yeah,
they are not worth my time. If someone's going to be, I don't want necessarily someone to be a zealot for my cause, because my cause is, hey, live and let live. And maybe, like in my case, fishing, drinking, and ice cream, and possibly like talk Kara into doing something halfway crazy, or she talks. I actually get the feeling you do. I think I would be the adult sometimes with you. I think I would be.
I don't know. But I'm like, yeah, like we're going to
No.
Vegas. We're going to go play some poker. We're gonna
Yeah.
go
No.
to a strip club.
I think I got something figured out about. I think I figured something else about you too.
Oh, do tell. I love this.
You're right. I think this. You you love adventure, and if somebody's willing to share that with you, I think you'd value that very, very highly. And also, but also, I think whoever needs that has to be just kid enough to go along with you, but adult enough to like care up. You're gonna make me the adult in the friendship, Kara. You're gonna make me the adult. But
Yes, it will
yeah,
flip flop. It will
yeah,
flip flop.
probably.
Yes, there'll be sometimes and again, I play poker like this. I'll play tight, and then crazy. Like
You have to. It's
so yeah, that's true.
yeah, right. See, that's more important. That is more important to me than worrying about. Look, I don't know if I'll ever get in Kirkus reviews. I don't know if I'll ever. I don't know if I'll ever, be in Locus. I don't know if I'll ever be a Hugo or. but I've come to this. I don't care. This is what I care about. I care about if I don't care about any of that shit, I am free to do whatever I want, and I would rather do whatever I want. Also on my own. So I did an Alice in Wonderland Greek mythology mashup epic poem. Alice is Pandora. She opens Pandora's box and gets a certain Cheshire cat inside her head. So I got nominated for an Elgin Award, and I did that on my own.
Nice.
So
Love it.
guess what? I don't need to be anything but myself, and I will trust that, God, the universe, whatever you believe out there, ladies and gentlemen, I am certainly not here to judge you. I about that, right? Will provide what I need to meet the right people at the right place at the right time. That's it. I no longer am worried. I've won awards. They're great. I don't care anymore. What I care about is this. This I care about. Reaching people that want to do, I care about that. The rest,
Like, you are tapping so much into the river of where my spirit is right now. Like, I can't even tell you, like, I can't even tell you how much my mind has been in this place for months, and like how much certainty and understanding I'm getting. Like, I'm finding about what I want in my life and what I want with my days and my years. Hopefully I get
yeah.
years. And
Well,
and it's like, that's it, like that is it.
I lost. So my first personal apocalypse came at 27 years old. I lost everything. It didn't break me. It freed me. The pandemic. So when you're in your late 20s, you're still kind of worried about what other people think, and when you get into your 30s, you stop caring less. The pandemic taught me that the very worst qualities as a human being we can have is letting fear dictate how we live our lives. And I realized, and again, realizing that the world, as a general rule of thumb, seems to want to run you through fear and guilt. Well, you know what? I'm certainly not perfect, but I certainly ain't feeling guilty about anything I've done. Million mistakes, very few regrets, and that's how I'm going to live my life. And as for fear, well, I have a healthy respect of things, ish. But I am going to look. Yeah, but the thing is, I don't care who's across from me. I don't care what you think you are. I'm going to look you dead in the eye. I'm going to say what's up, and I don't care what it is. And that might be defiance. That might be like I said. At 50, I'm going to be a monster. I got here faster than my dad did. Right, and right. So I'm going to be.
It's not. I mean, it's not monstrosity or chaos. It's that is the key to empathy and connection and peace.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the big things that bothered me so much, and still bothers me, about the division that we're currently experiencing. Is I so rarely see, and I don't mean like in the media, I don't want to see it in like a YouTube video, I mean in person, where somebody says, you voted for X and or Y. Why? What is it about? What is going on in your life that matters, that this person speaks to you?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the bigger issue. You have other people who are like, well, they voted for so and so because they're this, or they voted for so and so because they're
Yeah,
this. And it's
I
like,
hate
you
that
need
shit
to
so
ask
much.
that person what matters to them. And this comes to character, So this so often we like to paint people in the way of fiction. So it's like, this is a supervillain, or this is whatever. And it's very rare that actually happens in life. Life doesn't. People have personal motivations for things, and
In one sense, it's not really complicated. People are going to look at what seems to work best for them in this moment. Like for the most part, this is what it is.
yeah,
People don't like. There are zealots that go for causes, and one of the things I realize is I don't care which end of the spectrum you're in. There are zealots for every cause, and there's more of them I think than we realize. And I think it's like so. And that's the other thing about Facebook. I kind of want to walk away from it for that reason. It's like I see it more now, and I'm. So when the latest shootings came out, this was basically to sum this up for me. It's terrible, but we're having so the AR rifle has been a point of discussion since before I was born.
mm-hmm.
I have heard the exact same shit my whole life.
Yeah.
We're squawking. That's exactly that like that's where we're at. It's like, it's not that I don't think it's not a serious problem, but it's pragmatically speaking, there's so many guns in your country. This is the thing. Like, I'm in Canada, you're in the States. So many guns in your country that even if you made a law tomorrow that made them illegal, you'd have gun problems for decades. That's not an easy out. On the same time, at the same time, this is the other thing too. Watching your leadership, I understand why you have the Second Amendment. I really get I get it. So it's not quite a cut and dried solution. So maybe, and then I had this wonderful thought. Maybe going after all the guns directly is too hard. But you know what there isn't a lot of? Gun companies. Maybe you should go after them in a way that makes them more accountable. That would be an easier. Now, this is an idea. This is just an idea. It's not the only way to do this. But it seems to me like 5 or 6 companies, managing them is a lot easier than millions of guns. Just, it's a math thing. 6 millions. Like, it just seems like, and you can incentivize them to do it. Now, we could have that discussion. Instead, what's happening now is, right, it's the emotionally charged, well, I know someone's been killed. Yeah, and it's tragic. Or, I'm going to keep my guns. And it's emotionally charged. And it's the same exact shit. We're not trying anything new. And it's not even, I could use any other example you want. I could talk about the abortion. I could talk about political lead. I could talk about the vaccines. That was also, I mean, it's the same thing. You take an issue, you polarize it, you get people to squawk, and nothing gets done. And I, for one, am sick of this. I'm too old for this shit. You know what I would rather do? I'd rather go to you, hey, let's go do something crazy, right? Like a teenager, and let's have some fun.
Yeah.
Let's make some magic in the world, right? Let's do that, right? Oh, maybe humans may be a messy emotional balls of illogic, but this goes way beyond that. This is pure insanity at this point. I've seen the same pattern my whole fucking life. I am not the smartest man in the world. If I can see this pattern, others must be able to see this pattern. Or I'm either the smartest man, the most insane man, or I'm just right. One of the others, right? So, all right.
What seems the most logical is that there, and something that we always have to think about, we were talking about this a little bit before, is how much we know. What we know, what don't we know? What do we don't know that we don't know? So there's a whole avenue of this that we don't know about. We're not included in that conversation.
Yes.
And so you have to factor that in too.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. But even so, like, what it comes down to is, when I read a Facebook post I read 20 years ago, like almost word for word verbatim, right? I am like when I see that pattern, I'm like, I can't be the only one that's seen this, right?
No. And then you know, that just saying it to say it is like a pressure release. Especially for the past 6 or 7 years, something that especially people in my life have heard me say over and over again is that social media is literally making people sick. It's making our brains ill. And it's our brains are very adaptable organs, and our neural pathways adapt to what we use it for and the emotions that we have and the endorphin hits that we get. And we know that social media plays into how our brains react. And it is literally rerouting our brains and making us ill. It affects everything from our body dysmorphia and how we see ourselves, what we think we should look like, to how we think we should think and talk. And every time there's anything in the news, there's a group of people on my Facebook who have this. I know exactly what they're going to post.
Yes, like, I know. No.
I don't even need to look. I know exactly what they're going to say. I know exactly how they feel about it. They're not doing that for me. They're not doing that to like educate me. They're doing that for their brain. They're doing that to feed their addiction. They're doing that to get the hits that they need. And it's not good. It's not, for the people I love and human beings who I care about in general, it's like I want to be like, protect your brain health. Your brain health is so important. And like, we got to cut it off somehow. Like, we have to wean ourselves or just protect ourselves, protect our brains.
What's happened to me is I've just lost my patience. So I'm probably going to be, I'm going to probably be, so there's a comic book I love called Transmetropolitan, right? So it is now, Warren Ellis doesn't have the best reputation currently, and justifiably so. But once he was most prolific writer in comics for a very long time, that's one of my favorite books. So now it's got its absurd moments. It's got some really adult moments. It's basically, what if Hunter S. Thompson was doing journalism in the future? It's basically that like that. Just to give you an idea of this. I'm good at pitches, as you can tell. I'm very, very good at pitches.
I mean, your elevator pitches are next level.
Yes, that's what it is, right? That's what it is. So the first line in there is "up a goddamn mountain." Like that's literally the first line in the comics. So it tells you like how twisted this thing is. Machines are on drugs, right? Machines are on drugs in the future. They actually make their own drugs. So Larry, like it's fucked up.
I love that so much. I love it. I really need to get into comics.
Yeah. I think, okay, personal note, I think by and large, with some exceptions, I mentioned Marauders. I think you'll love Marauders because it's Pirates and X-Men. You're not gonna keep, so it's a hard one to fuck up, right? So right, it's a really hard one.
I mean, pirates alone, pirates with superpowers, so
yeah. So there you go. Like, easy, right? Doesn't take a genius. It doesn't take a genius, but mostly it's the end. Like, this book talks about the heart of caring about a world that's kind of gone. Like, if you really sit there and think about it, Hunter S. Thompson, and to a lesser extent even Ellis, was trying to do something about how point people out to the truths of the world. There's a part of me that understands that anger, because I look at the information. The one thing about social media is it has made news media obsolete. You can watch minute by minute updates of events around the world. If you really want to, that ability is there. And I think that's actually an amazing thing. But at the same time, this is where I get annoyed is people will take a shortcut instead of actually looking at themselves and actually coming to, and I get it, we don't have time to look at everything, but at the same time, right? At this point, the information is available that the discussion doesn't have to be the same box points. So what's happened to me is my patience is going to shit. Right. So, and I think that's part of getting older too, is you lose that ability to swallow crap. But and you're laughing at that because you could, I think you could see this with me too. It's like, I've lost that patience. So what happens now is I'm not afraid to speak my mind about anything. I think I have also made that pretty clear in the last 2 hours too. Right. I'm not afraid.
I don't think that, I mean, not that you've said anything crazy, but yeah.
But but the thing is, I'd speak my mind, and I would talk to you openly about anything and everything, and I wouldn't care. And here's the thing. I'm cool with you disagreeing, right? But I also unless you're going to come at me with a nuanced point of view, like an actual opinion, I don't care. Right. At this point in the ball game, they all got money tied into how they tell their stories, and at this point, I don't think any certain people, media, doesn't matter who it is, right? And this sounds incredibly cynical. You always check where the money comes from, because that 100%. Will tell you. Yeah.
Well, and the especially as writers too, right? So we're very in tune to how things are packaged with words.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you see a, like so-and-so shocking and disgraceful, like their use of adjectives is very interesting, and it's all meant to enrage. And so people that, these media companies are making money off of outrage, you being upset. Absolutely. This is pretty well, this is known, it's like, we know this. And when you I'm just not quite sure why people aren't very present to it, that it's feeding off of your anger, and
because
Don't give in.
anger makes you feel strong. That's the thing.
Yeah,
That's the
and
anger,
it's
right?
yeah,
And then what a lot of people and seductive. That's the seduction of anger. Actually, so anger and passion are two sides of the same coin. Being passionate about something is awesome, but being angry gives you like almost makes you feel like I'm going to quote Star Wars, like that dark side thing where you're stronger, more focused, more intense, and it feels great.
smart. People feel
Yeah.
very smart, right? So it's
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, you need to, a lot
Yeah.
of people say you need to educate yourself, and that is the implication of that is I am educated. You need to get as educated as I am. So
Yeah.
you are automatically putting nothing on the table, but getting all of the like intellectual boons.
It's the ego that's being stroked there. Now, here's the thing. This is what I've learned about anger from my own experiences. Anger can be broken, and when you break someone's anger, they have nothing because that's
Yeah.
fuel. It was been their fuel. So it's not enough, right? Right, and yeah. But like I said, it's one of those things where you realize you like anger. Heck, okay, even the whole trust the science mantra. If you really sit there and think about it, it's ego feeding. If you're educated, you're gonna go with the flow because these are what these educated hip, whatever the fuck you think they are gonna do. But it's an ego thing. Now, if you're a scientist, though, you should hate this because this is basically because it's also because not just because of the ego stroke, but it's puts you in a contract with people. Because this is what happens now is it better go the way you're saying it's going to go. Because if it doesn't, it has killed your credibility.
Yeah.
And then no one listens to you. Right? It is one of the most poisonous things of the last 2 years, right? But it still comes from that same spot. It's that anger, that zen, that I'm invincible. You're not.
Yeah.
Right?
And also I have a hard time with science because I love science. I love so I studied biological anthropology in college.
Okay.
And I I particularly just casually love to listen to um things about like neurobiology and just all kinds of things in relation to science because it's magical. It opens up. You realize how much we live in a fantasy world when you get into science.
Yes. Oh,
And
absolutely. Oh no. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
and so when people start using science as this untouchable, unquestionable, uh, like almost religious experience, it's deeply bothersome to me because the beauty of science is its ability to want to be wrong. That when you put out a scientific theory and you support those claims to your best ability as a scientist, you're saying I challenge you to test the same things, test it in your way, because that's how we inch our way closer to some kind of level of understanding of something that we know a very small wedge of in this existence in the universe and even this planet. And when you make a hard line in the sand where you can't talk about it, you're violating something that I hold very precious personally, and it's hard for me.
So see that for the rest of my life, then at that moment I really start talking about it. See, I've become that guy, right? Where it's just like I am no longer going to let anyone silence me for any reason that way
Yeah,
ever
and
again. Yeah.
if we're in a position where you're saying, "Yeah, but why?"
Yeah.
and someone says, "You need to shut your mouth," we have a problem.
Well, that's what Trust the Science ultimately said. Shut your mouth and do what you're
Yeah,
told.
and I don't
And
and I
that's
don't like that.
that no, and that's the thing, right? I think it's one of the most toxic things come in the last few years. It has undermined the credibility of a lot of these scientists. And the next time there's a crisis, and here's the other thing: the next time there's a crisis, it's going to even get harder to get people to trust them. Why? And it's going to be justified because of how they went about it and did it this time.
And
right?
I understand people's fear.
Yeah.
And I have a great deal of empathy to be like, I'm afraid. There's also people who are sad, mourning, because we lost a lot of people.
Hmm.
And those people all were, vital, now, and
It wasn't
voids
fair.
in people's lives,
Yeah.
where they once were. And I have a deep amount of empathy for that. Um, all I'm asking for is a conversation. That's
Yeah.
all I want is just to be able to talk. Because I might be like, yeah, but why? And then they say, well, this, and then it's like, okay. And I mean, it definitely happened like that a lot. There
Oh,
were
sure.
there was some conversation happening, but there was a lot of times where there was a couple things specifically where I was like, I'm thinking that there's these side effects from, is this happening? And basically, I know I'm being vague in the things that I looked up.
Like I said, you want to talk openly about it. I'm just saying, I personally don't care.
Yeah.
You can, I understand why. I understand why. Here's a big question. I'll just tell you a big question I have now right. What's a vaccine now? In light of how the current thing has worked compared to, like, say, the smallpox or polio vaccines, just for my own clarity and definition now, what is a vaccine? Right? And
Mm.
that might sound like a dumb question,
No, I know
but
exactly where I know exactly what you mean.
yeah,
Yeah.
it just for personal frame of reference in the future. That way, I have an understanding of what you're coming from. And that's the thing. It's vague. It's not transparent. And that's the thing. It's not. If you're right, here's the thing. If you're right about something, you owe it to people to try to get them to understand why you're right.
Yeah.
Right? And also in the hopes that a better solution comes into the game. And then we're going to move on to something fun because you mentioned something about, like, theories and physics. So, were you a Boy Meets World fan?
No.
Okay. So I have, so my rabbit hole. So this has been my rabbit holes for the last little bit. I found Girl Meets World, which was because it was like, okay,
Oh,
childhood thing.
yes.
I found
Their
I found
daughter,
Girl.
right?
Yeah, their daughter, right? Not bad. It's cheesy, but it's not bad,
That's what
right?
I would expect.
Yeah, yeah, right. It's Disney, so I expected that cheesy. So I ended up going. So they took me back to, and this is the thing, where Mr. Feeney and Corey rode the roller coaster. It is one of the dumbest things on television I've ever seen, but it's so great. They go out to the ride, they come in. So Corey's in the front car, Feeney's in the back car, and when they come back, Feeney's in the front car, Corey's in the back, and they're both, like, traumatized with what they've been through, right? And here's the thing. And so this is the answer to the question for autocars. It's not that it's see, here's the thing. If you make it too much fun, no one's gonna ask questions. They're just gonna go
Yeah.
with it, right?
Yeah.
So
In there's a beautiful moment when we sit down, for a movie or a video game or a book, where we're handing over permission to the creator to take us somewhere, and we
mm,
want to believe it. So, I mean, I'm sure there are people who sit down and try to find holes, but for the most part, our brain is going to, like, make allowances because we want to be on that ride.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like if it's fun, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right, right. That's the thing. Like, going back to something I said earlier from the very beginning, is I'm more interested in fun than I am necessarily being great. And it doesn't now. Here's the little challenge of that: if you're going to be really fun, you're probably going to have to be really great. That's just how it works. But right, but like I said, I mentioned Terry Pratchett. Another person I'm a big fan of is Dr. Seuss. So, and the reason why I'm a big fan of Dr. Seuss is he is the ultimate. Like, I would put him as number 3 all time on most important graphic novelist of all time.
Mm.
Because you don't think of him like a comic, but seriously, like, just for a little imagination, take Fox and Socks and put, like, comic bubbles where they're supposed to go, and you would have a comic book story. Now, that doesn't work
Yeah.
with all his stories, but quite a few of them they do. And here's the thing, right? So, if you look at what a graphic novel is, who fits that definition better than Seuss? And the fact that he could do 50 words and pictures and tell incredible stories, that's greatness, and silly and fun. And it's everything I want to be as a creative, right?
Yeah.
It's everything I want to be.
That's
I
it.
don't.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that. You know, it's funny. So the comment about time travel is funny because it definitely it pokes the hole right in what I just had said, because time travel is so difficult to do, because it's with the there's what was it, Primer is I think the one that notoriously has done it the best, and people make like full on hour-long videos to try to figure it out, but it is so hard to not see holes in time travel.
So my favorite time travel story is a comic book, and it's going to come from the most unexpected of all places, Lobo. Lobo is a bounty hunter. So his comics are essentially about three things: booze, sex, and violence. Like they're not complicated at all.
Sold.
Right? Yeah, right.
Sold.
So right. So in this one story, he's facing a time traveling thief, and he's going to catch him. So what he ends up doing is he kills 20 different versions of him at the same time, and he takes one corpse to each bounty to get 20 different rewards. I love that. It is
That's
my
brilliant.
favorite. Yeah, no, that is my favorite time. I really don't care about the holes. I don't need to. Listen, I don't need the answer to the paradox of them all dying, right? The fact of the matter is, he had 20 different bodies of corpses at the end of the issue,
That
right?
reminds me of another time travel movie that was I enjoyed. It was called, I think it was called Triangle,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a group of people on a ship. And there's one scene in particular that's pretty good. It's come somewhat. I don't want to give anything away if somebody wants to watch it, or if you want to watch it, but that was a good time travel one.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, like you have things like Looper, and that was easy to get caught up in terms of the loopholes.
Well, let's say, like, if you know, okay, if you know the story isn't going to make sense, really makes sense, don't try to yeah. Well, yeah, but see, Arthur Goddess. Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Then the movie failed in one key way. It wasn't fun enough. Because here's the thing, right here, right. This is why I say you gotta be great to be fun, right? This is the thing. If you tell me the right story, okay, another comic book example, and this is fantastic. It's called Axe Cop. World-class artist, 10-year-old narrator. It is gold. It doesn't make sense. Not always. It goes off in tangents sometimes because it's what a 10-year-old would do. It's brilliant. It doesn't pretend to be anything other than what it is, and that's what. Again, if you want to know the secret to overcoming a bad plot hole, right? Go all in on the authenticity of the story you're telling. You can overcome bad plot if it's not going to make sense. Again, I mentioned the roller coaster with Feeney and Corey, right? Feeney and Corey. Feeney ended up in the front, and Corey in the back. And the only information they gave at one point, I was thrown out of the car. I had to run in front of the car, and there was like a little bit of like pain and drama. That's all they give you. They don't give you anything else. It was such a fun scene that you didn't care. Right, that's why.
My thought process is going like the power of the absence, the power of the blank space of what's not told, which is a hugely powerful thing in horror, massively
Absolutely.
powerful, and underutilized in a lot of modern horror movies.
Less is more, for sure.
Yeah, especially mainstream. That's why like you get like kind of like lower budget horror movies are so great because they can't show those scenes and they can't show those moments. So, because they don't have the budget.
Indie horror rules. Actually, legitimately, indie horror absolutely rules.
Without question. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much. I mean, that is another. When I was a kid, I lived right next to a warehouse movie rental, and like lived right behind one. And so my goal was to go and like rent all of the horror movies. And so I saw some truly bad, low budget horror movies, but it was great. It was and then like those.
We gotta get you to come back another day. for
Yeah.
that conversation.
Well, and all like the when I just told this story this week too. When I was a kid, I one Christmas, I think I was like 11 or 12, and my parents asked me, well, what do you want for Christmas? And I just said vampire stuff. And my parents were like, what the heck does that mean? Right? So they bought me a bunch of movies, VHSs, and they bought me The Fearless Vampire Killer, The Hunger, which is still one of my favorite movies, David Bowie and Sandra
Labyrinth.
No, it's The Hunger with Catherine Deneuve and
Okay.
Susan Sarandon, and
Okay.
it is. I love that movie. So that movie, Near Dark, which is a completely under appreciated vampire movie. It has Bill Paxton in it, and it's like this dusty, American West vampire, brutal. It's a great movie. And so all these like vampire movies. What else? Oh, Interview with the Vampire was one of my favorite movies growing up. I watched it over and over and over again. I could quote it.
You can quote it. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so yeah, no, I love those movies. And yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but I just like I'm obsessed.
No. You love the lesson. Like less is the less. Like because I was going back to that. Like less is more. So again, it's how you tell the story. It's what it ultimately comes down to is how you tell the story. And the thing is, right? My rules don't need to make sense. They actually don't. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Hey, okay. I mentioned Discworld. Discworld is a giant disc with elephants underneath it. It doesn't actually have rhyme or reason to it. He just did it because it's on a whim. He's got footnotes and death just appears randomly in every book, and it's hilarious, right?
Yeah.
Right. I don't care because the story he tells is so profound. None of that shit matters.
Yeah.
When the but when I am writing a story, like okay, right now I'm doing this novel I'm doing with Killing the Evil Knights of the Round. So right now I have my main character trying to get her guns right to fight this evil pincer monster that's been remade by the Holy Grail. It's still like silly, stupid fun in a police station. So it is. It's all it really is, right? I'm probably stealing from a video game I like called Devil May Cry because I really, really think that
I loved Devil May Cry.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of the Ninja Theory version of the game. I love the Ninja Theory. I love the Matrixy concept they have there. It's really, really fun.
Yeah.
But my first exposure to Devil May Cry was the really hard Devil May Cry 3. That's such an asshole game that once you die like really early on, then they unlock easy because then they're just pricks about it. They wait till you like die like 3 times. Like here's easy mode, you wimp.
Yeah.
And right. It was like, but the thing is, Dante is so fucking over the top, right? Yes, it does. It's silly. It is absolutely the silliest death ever.
Yeah.
It is the silliest death ever.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's the very, very slow death that happens for the rest of the movie from once it happens, right? So, but the whole point is, people will go with it if it's fun and it's entertaining. Ghostbusters doesn't make sense, really. It makes kind of sense in its own canon.
The physics, you mean?
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense, but the characters are compelling. The tone of the movie sets it up really, really quickly. It's
You're talking about the new one, right?
Even the new one and even the old one, right? It doesn't
even the old one.
Even the old one. Even the old one. So it doesn't make sense, but you don't care because we could do a whole discussion about modern movies borrowing too much from its source material and not enough to make its own story. That is a big, important part of the conversation. That's actually my big thing with Marvel Cinematic movies, like the big ones. That's the problem with them, right? They don't have enough of that on their own. The small stories do, but the big ones don't. So, but ultimately, if the story is built up in such a way that It's engaging. It's fun, right? It doesn't even have to be fun. It has to be engaging. It has to feel authentic and real. It's why I mean, a good example of that is the first Matrix movie versus the second and the third Matrix movies. The first one works. The other two, second one's okay, but it's not great. It's right, but it breaks its own rules,
I've only
right?
ever seen the first one because I didn't hear anything good about the other one, so I was like, I'm good. The Wachowskis are an interesting, are very, to me, very fascinating creators, because they really go for it in terms of the fantasy.
Yeah.
And so and in a way that I don't think a lot of filmmakers do, like in the mainstream, and not like
yeah. They're given a lot of allowances, but that's also because they have the home runs behind them, right? So
right.
they're allowed to experiment a lot more. And
But like I feel like I haven't created any kind of like decisions on this, but the it would be an interesting exploration to find the line of, because I feel like Cloud Atlas is on that line of really hardcore fantasy where people could still be engaged and they're with that story. And given they have a book source material that they worked off of, and then you have on the other hand, what's the other one with Mila Kunis?
Jupiter Ascending.
Jupiter Ascending. And I feel like Jupiter Ascending was too much. So like you lost people with Jupiter Ascending, but you brought people to the limit with Cloud Atlas, and probably lost some people because it's pretty out there. But
but again, in the story they told also, the other thing that the movie has an advantage of, sometimes if the actor's having a blast, it translates. I think Revenge.
That's an excellent point. I hadn't considered that in terms of the enjoyability of that movie, but you're right.
No, let me give you an example. I think, okay, this is my opinion. I think the prequel trilogy of Star Wars they're garbage by and large. But people like the third movie. I would submit to you it's because Ian McDiarmid had so much fun playing Palpatine.
That's fascinating. But Jupiter Ascending, you're correct. It was a beautiful world and just a bad story, and people who didn't seem like they wanted to do it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Like here's the thing. Like if movies have this really cool dimension to them that the actors and actresses and crew can add to the story being told in unexpected and moving ways. Does Heath Ledger's Joker in Dark Knight work without Heath Ledger? No, because only he would have played that character that way. Yeah. Right? Does Jack Sparrow's Pirates of the Caribbean, does that work with I can't remember his name. It just brings the
Johnny Depp.
Brain. Yeah. Johnny. No, Johnny Depp.
That's why they're willing to dump literal buckets of money at his feet.
I disagree with you. I disagree with you on that one. I think that one is deceptively smartly written. Like the first one anyway. The second one I maybe agree with you, but not the first one. Right? So yeah.
Just a side note on that, like I know he's not I wish I saw Lee Pace in more things. I love Lee Pace, and he was great in that. But The Fall, have you ever seen the movie The Fall? Is one of the most beautiful movies ever made. It is a stunning movie. In character, God, that movie's so good, and he's so good in it. Lee Pace in all things. That's what.
Okay, fair enough. No, but that's the thing, right? Like you gotta remember, like they're creative people. It's a collaboration when you look at a film or a television set, right? So, it takes so many factors, right, to make a good story on a movie screen pop. Cartoons in one way are easier. Now, then again, that voice cast in Harley Quinn, it wouldn't work, right? It would, like, again, part of the joke with Bane and Harley Quinn is he still has the Tom Hardy accent with Bane. It actually, right, which is part of the joke, which is why it works so well. Bane's card trick is going to make you like, so the fact he says the world will burn in Razzie Dazzie, which is like a Slurpee drink, is like that that breaks me every single time. But the second favorite thing I do is I love Bane in that. Like Bane and the Joker are my favorite two villains in that show because they are so not what you expected, right? And yet still very like Bane gets kind of walked on by everybody, but he can still kick Batman's ass, right?
Yeah.
He's still like he's the guy who can do it. And the Joker, he's still a psycho. He's just got a family and he's domesticated, and it oddly works. No, and it oddly works, right?
Yeah.
Right?
I'm definitely gonna check this out.
No, like compelling stuff. So here's the thing. I think, yeah, like this is the thing. I think if we met in person, we wouldn't shut up. And
I agree.
I think we wouldn't shut up. I think, yeah, you're pretty awesome. I think you're pretty awesome. And like I said, I look forward to the day you drag me off somewhere, and I'll drag you off somewhere. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So,
I mean, I am so curious about experiencing things. Like I was saying, like I'm open. You read it correctly. If you said, "Let's go," I would probably do it.
I think you
If
would.
schedule allowed. I do, you know, the adult part of me, I do still have a job. I do have a job. But
Yeah,
other than that, I have to.
I'm trying to work my way out of it, but I've been freelancing for the last 2 years. It's been up. Like this month has been a down month. Like I'm not gonna lie.
Freelance rough.
Well, yeah, but that's but again, I realize how precious life is.
Yeah.
And for me, I think what it comes down.
Adulting.
Yeah.
I know. You are in on this chat. We need to have you on a video chat too. Yeah.
Sarah's been on my show before, actually.
Oh yeah.
Sarah's been on my show before. It's been a while. I am approaching 1,000. I should probably bring you back at some point there, Sarah. We should just
1,000. Are you going to celebrate?
I don't know. See, so I'm going to tell you my master plan for the next little bit. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this freelancing thing work. Now, here's the thing. If things go really well, I will be in Alberta for another year, but I'm going to be unofficially starting my traveling biz next year. I'm going to be doing conventions. I'm going to be releasing books. I'm going to be doing that stuff again. But what I really want to do, here's again, the little part of me that's an asshole, get a Mystery Machine van. Right. Not every interview, but most of them. Right, most of them. I'm good at this.
That's what happens when you get writers together. Like, writers we're interested in a lot of things. How can you write if you don't have interest in a lot of things?
Yes. So I'm getting like a Mystery Machine style band with my logo. So most of the time I have a regular horn. Every once in a while, as a practical joke, I'm going to shift it to ice cream music because I just want to see if I can get people. It'll actually again. Yeah. Why not? But at the same time, I realize in this life, like time is a precious thing.
Absolutely.
And we often mistake our windows of time with people and as opportunities. We miss our opportunities with the people in our lives. And I think a lot more often than not, because we think they're always going to be around, and that's actually not true. So what I want to do is, while I'm still able and willing and crazy and able to do all these things and go on some wild and crazy adventures across both countries, maybe find someone along the way that wants to do a few of those as well. And then live and see where life takes me. My uncle was a photographer. And he went around the world, and he was very lucky. He actually found a woman like his wife, and that's what they did their whole lives. And I think like magical existences are possible. I just think that what it comes down to is, what do you want in this life, and where does that go, and how will that take you? And for me, I don't need. Again, I'm by myself. I don't need a lot. So there go. I don't really need a lot. I'm free to do anything I want, and I kind of like that for now. So that's kind of where I'm at.
You're speaking, you're singing to the choir.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. That's where my mind has been camped.
Okay.
You know, Yes, it's the key.
Yeah. So, Miss Kara, I think we got to wrap up the official. Oh, you don't need to be you don't need to be wealthy for that. What you need is just the drive to do it. And when I say that, really, I say that I'm not trying to belittle the financial obligations and your responsibilities, and that's not what I'm saying. What I've learned in this life, and this is the biggest thing I've learned in this life. If you really want something, usually sooner or later the world provides. Right. So I've learned this. I think a lot of us again, and there's nothing wrong with having priorities. There's nothing wrong like having those wants served. But what I realized in this life is, at the end of the day, we all do exactly what we want to do. So the question we should ask ourselves is this: Are we
And there's
doing?
always the I think people think of things as like, and I'm not saying that you do think of things as in extremes, like I can either go off and do these things or not at all. But
No,
there's always
no,
a negotiation in life where you can do little things, or you can do a little bit, or
absolutely. No. Again, it's not a race. It's
yeah.
not. It's not a fucking race. But let's say like we do the skydiving jelly bean thing. So maybe what we'll do off the air is like, okay, let's figure it. Let's be adults about this. Let's figure out a date and time, and let's just fucking do it, right? Right, and that's the adult way of doing it. And right, doesn't conflict your schedule. Doesn't conflict. Oh, so to the first 2 points, there are other ways. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
So Scott's flights. Keep an eye on Scott's flights because they'll let you know about plane ticket deals.
Yes.
I've gotten grabbed a couple plane tickets for like $40 each. You could.
My
There are
sister
ways.
worked.
There are ways.
My sister worked for an airline, and up until like a couple of years ago, I could fly anywhere in America for the most expensive place was $150. So I just
Beautiful.
yeah. So like all I'm saying, regardless, is this: if you really want a way to do it, really consider all your options. They're there.
That's the thing. Do it a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah. Again, that's what I'm saying. Like, we're talking here. You don't have to do it all at once. I might do it all at once, but I don't have the same. I'm free to do what I want. Like I've accepted that I'm not retiring. I'm just that's why I'm doing freelancing. I want to live the life I want to live now and create it on my terms, whatever those terms are, right? And so that by the time I get to like 45 at the absolute latest, if I go, I want to travel to California and jump out of a plane with Kara, or I want to go to where you are. I think you just moved, Sarah, so I can't say where you're at anymore. But I can travel to where you're at, and we can just chill and go into a heavy metal concert because those things fucking rule, right? All right. And then the next day, I might go decide. You know what? I want to go to Detroit to see my family. I can do all of those things or none of those things, and I can still work and make, because I have a big mouth, and that big mouth is universal. I can take that anywhere with me. So that's the thing, right? So I look at it. That's the life I'm choosing to try to live, and I'm going through the struggles now, so I don't have to later. Life will give me different struggles later, but that's okay. I'm not afraid of a struggle. I'm not afraid of that negotiation.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah. And I don't think I thanked you for this, but thank you for moving this up today because I'm going camping.
Yeah.
So that's an example. It's like not necessarily going far, not doing I'm not hiking the PCT yet, but
okay.
Just it's baby steps.
Yeah, it's it. It doesn't need to be a giant swing. It's, if you break things down into steps, doesn't matter how big the goal is, you can do it. And that's something else I've learned too. So, Miss Arthur-Gareth, good luck with that. So, Miss Kara, we gotta promote something here before we wrap up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's promote. Yeah.
All 3 Eloy books are on Amazon.
Okay.
I also co-started a company called Voracious Readers Only, for self-publishing writers to build their readership and get an email list, which is the key to your marketing success.
Yes.
So build your community, build your people, yeah. So Voracious Readers Only, the Eloy trilogy. I hope you like it. It's definitely for people who know that feeling of the weight of ambition.
Yes. And how can people find you specifically if they want to find you?
Oh, I'm on Instagram. I have a website. I like how I was just touting marketing, but because I had those few years, it kind of fell to the wayside. But yeah, Instagram. I mean, you can connect with me on Facebook.
Is it caratimmins.com?
Yes, caratimmins.com, and my Instagram is just caratimmins. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
I'm almost a trained professional. Don't tell anybody.
Almost. Yeah. So, but yeah, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And voraciousreadersonly.com is
okay. Yeah. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna put mine up. I would start that. Voracious read. I hope I spelled this right. Or Voracious Readers Only.
Yeah.
I get that right. Please tell me I got that right.
It looks like it.
Woohoo! I am so smart. SMR.
Yeah. Well, this was an absolute pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. No, I exceeded all of my expectations. Stay on the line before we wrap up. I'm going to wrap this up really quick for the audience here. This is my advertising services. I make video content for projects and yourselves. You can definitely take a look there. I also do audio. I can make words, pictures as well. Definitely take a look. I bring out the best in yourself and the best in your work. So definitely take a look there. And this has been an incredible week of chats. Next week, I'm going to get a lighter schedule because I did 8 chats this week. I'm going to only do 3 next week. So Monday, actually, my first publisher is my guest, Justine Alidowsa, is actually going to join the show. So the girl that accidentally published me, or actually made the decision to publish me, she's coming on. So it's going to be pretty sweet. But to everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you guys next week.